Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this the June 11th, 2025 meeting of the City of South Pasadena Public Works Infrastructure Commission to order. Raina or Philip, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Vice Chair Hannah Brunel has been excused tonight. Commissioner Dunlap,
Here.
Commissioner Kerwin,
Present.
Commissioner Hammond,
Here.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Present.
Commissioner Mailing,
Present.
Commissioner Sharma,
Here.
Chair Abelson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next up, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Sharma, would you please lead us?
Allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Sharma. Let's see, first item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have anybody in the audience who would like to speak on a topic that is not on our agenda tonight? Do we have anyone online? We have none. All right. I will then close public comment. Next up, item 2 on the agenda is a presentation on the tree ordinance review. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioners. On behalf of Public Works Department, we thank you for your time this evening. My name is Danielle Garcia. I currently serve the city as a water conservation management analyst. And joining me today is also Michael Vartanians, who's the acting co-director of Public Works. At the direction of City Council, we're here to provide an update on the proposed improvements to the city's existing tree ordinance, as well as inviting this commission for any feedback on staff's recommended changes. As mentioned, this ordinance update stems from a City Council directive to review the existing ordinance for areas of improvement, specifically looking to increase efficiency in the permitting process, reevaluating the criteria for removals and trimming, as well as addressing the contemporary urban forest challenges that we've been recently seeing. Most recently, at the May 7th City Council meeting, Council approved more prescriptive language in the code that would aim to streamline the removal of hazardous trees and the trimming of dead or diseased branches, both essential in enhancing our public safety as well as promoting urban forest health. In alignment with Council's direction and following a comprehensive review of the ordinances from neighboring cities, staff developed recommendations to improve the efficiency, transparency, and enforceability of the permitting process while ensuring the city's urban forest is managed sustainably as well as remains a valued community asset. On screen, you will see 7 cities that we analyzed, including Alhambra, Arcadia, Sierra Madre, La Cañada, Glendale, San Marino, and Claremont. We've also noted which of these cities are designated as tree cities by the Arbor Day Foundation, as is South Pasadena. The tree city designation reflects a city's commitment to planting, maintaining, and managing its urban forest. To qualify for this designation, cities must have a tree board or associated department, enforce a community tree ordinance, celebrate Arbor Day annually, as well as invest at least $2 per capita of their urban forestry efforts. For this review, research review, staff focused on key policy areas, which I'll highlight at a higher level. It's important to note that within this highlight, our analysis centered on what's written in the municipal code in ordinances rather than the policies that are being implemented in the field. So to dive a little bit deeper into the research and give you sort of those high-level takeaways, under maintenance and responsibility, some cities stood out here as they have more clearly defined maintenance roles, specifically the responsibilities of both the city and private property owners, including within the public rights-of-way as well as the public easements. In several cases, cities also outline the role of commissions or advisory bodies in reviewing permits, maintaining approved tree lists, as well as guiding urban forestry practices. Our research found that South Pasadena could benefit from providing clear maintenance guidelines to our residents, as well as particularly for trees located on those private or undeveloped properties. Within development and land use, similar to South Pasadena's current tree ordinance, many cities require tree surveys, arborist reports, and protection plans when removals or trimming are associated with development projects. However, staff did note an opportunity to modernize the ordinance to address evolving development needs, including more integration with local and state standards. Urban forestry management additionally was a highlight in our research, either mentioned within cities' codes or supplemental materials. In cities such as Arcadia and La Cañada, they address the evolving realities of the growing development and aging infrastructure. So rather than focusing solely on tree preservation, some ordinances take a more integrated approach, balancing long-term canopy goals with practical demands of development, utilities, and public safety. Shifting into trimming and pruning criteria, permitting permits varied widely across cities. In some cases, permits were only required for trimming or removing of native trees or native species, while others didn't require permit at all for work unless it was done by a professional certified arborist. Some cities even limited their trimming criteria specifically to trees located on public right-of-way in the public easement. To reduce enforcement challenges and improve consistency, staff recommends establishing clear thresholds for when a trimming permit is required, aligned with the industry standards set by the International Society of Arboriculture, ISA, and the American National Standards Institute, also known as ANSI. Shifting into removal criteria, staff found that the current tree removal process in South Pasadena can be quite lengthy and financially burdensome to our residents, often requiring inspection fees, certified arborist report, GIS-based notifications, as well as the cost for replacing trees. Similar to South Pasadena, many neighboring cities require permits for tree removals and emphasis on protection of specific trees, most commonly native, heritage, or well-established street trees. In some cases, cities streamline the process by exempting lower impact species such as fruit trees or palms. Others define protected trees based on an objective measures like tree trunk diameters or height. These shared approaches reflect commitment to urban forest preservation while also highlighting an opportunity for South Pasadena to expand its protections for native species more explicitly within its ordinance frameworks. And second to last, permitting process. Currently, the permitting process, similar to our removal criteria, can be complex and quite time-consuming for both residents and staff, often resulting in confusion and occasional disputes. In contrast, many neighboring cities aim to streamline their process by focusing regulations on protected trees, as I mentioned before, establishing clear thresholds when permits are required, and ensuring professional oversight. Routine maintenance is often exempt, reducing the burden on homeowners while still preserving the valuable tree resources. Several of these other cities, including Sierra Madre and Glendale, are also in the process of re-examining their own tree ordinances to better address the modern challenges posed by the urban canopies and the shifting development patterns. And lastly, enforcement and compliance. Enforcement approaches, again, varied by city, but many cities successfully balance the urban forest protection with limited staff capacity by focusing on protected trees, applying clear criteria, as well as requiring professional oversight. The targeted strategy helps both administrative burdens while also maintaining the health and vitality of the urban canopy. Cities like Sierra Madre demonstrated strong enforcement frameworks featuring well-defined permit requirements, regular inspections, and clear penalties. Their ordinances tightly regulate both tree removals as well as significant trimming and ensure compliance through a combination of clear codes as well as active staff oversight. Most cities prioritize enforcement, mostly, as I mentioned, on native trees or otherwise protected trees, rather than regulating all trees on private property. This targeted focus allows limited staff resources to be directed to the most impactful cases. In conclusion, staff's research highlighted a need for simplification, clarity, and modernization of the South Pasadena's current tree ordinance. Best practices emphasize clear definitions, qualified professionals in alignment with community needs facing fire risk, as well as urban forest management. Overall, the direction is toward a more user-friendly, enforceable, as well as sustainable ordinance that balances tree preservation as well as practical implementation. Staff presented this presentation to the Natural Resources and Environmental Commission. Overall, they expressed support for the staff's recommendations, particularly highlighting how the proposed changes will simplify urban canopy management as well as ensuring long-term health. Some key feedback that NRAC included was considering ways to incentivize compliance, emphasizing the use of native trees for replacements, providing education and supplemental checklists to support permitting, offering more information on appropriate planting, trimming, and pruning seasons, engaging relevant stakeholders throughout the drafting process. So that includes fire department, insurance companies, legal experts, and lastly, exploring an urban forest management plan or similar goals to accompany the ordinance update. Earlier this week, we also presented to the Public Safety Commission, who expressed similar sentiments to NRC, emphasizing the importance of, again, including those native trees in our cities, expanding education and resources to help residents maintain their trees, and involving key stakeholders in the drafting process, as I mentioned. So drawing from our research, stakeholder feedback, and practical experience with enforcement, staff has pinpointed the following opportunities for enhancement. The first, under maintenance and responsibility, is utilizing standard city communication methods, instituting more resources on best practices for common tree health, trimming and pruning criteria, looking at integrating guidance on the optimal times of the year to trim oak tree species or other natives. Additionally, streamlining the permit process, including more clear, tangible guidelines early in the process to help applicants understand and comply with requirements. And lastly, reviewing and revising the language related to heritage trees. Under development and land use, staff is recommending aligning the code with the city's and state's current standards and expectations with development, as well as developing a comprehensive urban forest management plan. Similarly, under enforcement and compliance, staff is recommending removing subjective criteria, allowing violations to be applied consistently, as well as focusing the ordinance on protected trees. And for our last two recommendations, under removal criteria, staff is recommending revising code language to streamline the tree removal process, adjusting the replacement requirements, as well as amending approval criteria, redefining the appeal process to only require a 100-foot notification letter when a director denies an application, an applicant has appealed the director's decision, or if a director refers the decision to NRAC. And lastly, we're redefining the language again to be more effectively addressing the modern changes related to existing trees. And within permitting, staff is recommending simplifying the permitting process to ensure that native trees are protected. And this will look at minimizing time and costs associated with reviewing and processing tree removal permits, and additionally implementing a lower replacement requirement, requiring that 100-foot radius notification letter to be accessible only when an application is associated with development, denied or approved by a director, or if a director refers the decision to NRAC. And lastly, looking at revising the code language to correct the appeal fee to be paid by the individual filing the appeal. And this is our current proposed timeline for the ordinance update. So as I mentioned, we did take this presentation to NRC in May. Earlier this week, we visited the Public Safety Commission and presented the same presentation you're receiving today. Following today's presentation, we'll culminate all of the commission's feedback, take it to City Council, and ask for directive on ordinance updates. And then finally, and in late summer of 2025, we'll be providing a first reading of the draft, with a second reading coming in fall of 2025, and an ordinance hopefully in effect at the top of next year. And that concludes my presentation. At this time, we would like to invite your feedback on the recommended changes put forward by staff, and I encourage any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Terrific presentation. This time, before we start with questions or comments, I thought I'd check, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on the proposed tree ordinance? Okay, no public comment in the audience. How about online? Anyone there?
There are none at this time.
Okay, thank you. If somebody pops up, please let me know, but we'll close public comment for now.
Will do.
Okay, thank you. I'm assuming most people have comments, so I'll just start on my left. And Commissioner Hammond, do you have any questions or comments for staff?
I do have a question on the recommendation for one of the items. I'm aligned and agree with the NREC recommendations. Being on that commission before, I'm familiar with the removal permitting process. It is lengthy and is indeed need of a little bit of a revamp. But I was curious do you have a percentage in mind for the lower replacement requirements for your recommendation?
We are sort of using our analysis from other cities to develop that. We're looking at lowering it primarily for any hazardous or dead trees, the replacement only being one native tree. And then similarly, just that sort of chart that we have in our tree ordinance, reducing the amount at least maybe by half. We're going to be exploring that at least when we look at their ordinance update and see if that's viable. We don't have an exact number right now or percentage, but in our ordinance draft, and once we get final direction from council, that will be included in the first ordinance read.
Okay, and you say that that is geared towards hazardous or diseased trees, but is that also going to be for, because most of the cases that were brought up for removal were for development, like say ADU building or
Yeah.
splitting lots. So is that also going to be downsizing that applicable for those cases as well?
Yes, we are looking at just reducing it across the board, simply because a lot of the cases, especially with the ADUs, the replacement requirement can be close up to, I think we saw like 30 trees on one lot. So that's not always capable for some of the properties that we're looking at. That's not viable option to be able to replace 30 trees. So we want to make something that's, resilient and able to withstand the canopy that it's going to be replacing, way beyond, just the actual replacement. So we want to make sure that it's something that's going to be applicable to the property, as well as giving us back that value that we're going to be replacing.
And will you be maintaining because I know one of the ways to solve that within a lot, if there's too many trees within your new structure, is to pay to plant trees within the city?
Yes, so we do have a tree fund that a portion of what we take when we provide the permit, I believe it's about $424 per tree. That is given back to a resident if they are able to plant the trees. If they're not able to plant the trees, it does go into our tree fund. Once it's there, then that goes towards any maintenance or replanting that we'll look at in viable locations throughout public property. So yes, to answer your question, it will go back into replanting around the city.
And I know there were plans at one time to have an arborist in our city staff. Do we have that now? Because I know there's a lot of reference of, having a professional
Yeah.
assistance and help. Is that in place or?
Yes, we currently have a contracted arborist. We don't have one who's a full-time staff, but she does take all of our cases that come through and is able to give the analysis that we're looking for. Residents are also encouraged if they want to have another arborist support to have that additionally included in their cases, in their permitting cases. But we do have someone on staff currently. I don't believe we're looking to hire anyone full-time.
Okay.
And that's why we just have them contracted for now.
Okay, but there will be, then part of the improvement plan is to have somebody within the city, because a standardized approach of kind of a professional opinion, because I know that was one of the issues that we had with
Yeah.
NRC. It's like, depending on which arborist would show up, you could have a
Yeah.
completely different opinion.
You had
and-
two different
Yeah,
opinions.
so having some consistency within the city's POV would be desirable.
Yeah, and I think that definitely will come out with our urban forest management plan. That's going to be a little bit, longer, the goals that are going to be set there, and that could potentially be one of the goals that we set for the city to be able to retain a full-time arborist on staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Sharma.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia, great presentation. Thank you. It was very clear. My only question was around the trimming aspect of this process. I saw and I appreciate the proposal and really streamlining what the trimming process would look like. But could you speak to, under staff recommendations, it says, including clear, tangible guidelines early in the process. Could you speak to any thoughts or any language you all are considering just about, making, for those, not speaking to removal of trees, but those that are just looking to trim trees on their property, and whether there's any thought to certain scenarios where they would not have to seek a permit, just if it's what I'll just subjectively describe as minor,
Yeah.
or if there's other change in guidelines to just make it clear when someone needs to undertake some trimming on protected trees.
Yeah, that's a great question. We'll definitely be providing clear language on sort of the trigger that sets residents to have to get a permit. Currently, I believe it says at 10%, you can't trim more than 10%, which is guided by the ISA best management practices for trimming, for tree trimming and pruning. We're looking to just make sure that that's included more clearly in our tree ordinance. Right now, it's kind of ambiguous because we can go out to a tree, to a site, look at a tree and they can say, oh, we trimmed 9% of the live foliage that's there. Not having a general not understanding, but just being able to see what 10% and 9% is, that difference isn't as easy. So we want to make sure that we include language that's more clear and less vague for what is needed and what's not needed. In addition to that, we're going to be providing supplemental just educational resources on our website, as well in our urban forest management plan that will be able to guide residents on what exactly 10, 9, 12% looks like. Similarly, the ANSI guidelines recommend no more than 25% within a year. And then additionally, if the tree is able to take that. So just making sure that education is sort of woven into this framework and allows us to be able to enforce it a little bit easier.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hernandez.
Thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Question. If a developer or a homeowner decides to trim or remove trees, it's required to have an arborist. Do we have one on staff? And will they come out and review the trees, or are we still required to hire our own arborist?
Yes, so there's sort of two options. We do have a contracted arborist on staff. So she's a contractor. She's not full-time. She doesn't sit at one of our offices, but we do call her in every time we get an application that sort of triggers the need for an arborist review. Like I mentioned, if, further down the line, this is some feedback that we're receiving now, so we can incorporate this into our urban management plan, or urban forest management plan to try and have that as a goal for the city to hire one further down the line. Right now, that's not in our scope to
Okay.
achieve. But it's, we do have that contractor. She's great. She does come out. And then additionally, if residents want to have that second opinion, say they go to, they get a decline from our staff on their trimming permit, they can get a second opinion from a different arborist and dispute that, bring that back to NREC and have that second opinion in hand as well.
Who would then wind up paying for the arborist if we have one within the city?
If we end up having one on staff, it would be paid through the city. Any arborist that's, brought, any arborist report that's developed by a resident is unfortunately at the time paid by the resident.
In repairs of streets where there's a possibility that a tree needs to be removed, who then would have to review that if we have one on staff? The arborist of our city would?
Yes, so the arborist, our contracted arborist would come out, say we have a tree on Fair Oaks that has too hard of a lean and is becoming a public safety hazard. We do have our arborist come out, take a look at it, give us her opinion. If she does decide that it needs to be removed, we then have our other contractor, West Coast Arborist, come out and complete that work to remove the tree.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for your questions.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Dunlap.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. I think I'll be brief, and I live in a multifamily unit, and while there are challenges there, I am never been so glad that I don't have to go through this process. This is as much as I had to go into it today. So most of my questions are I'm just curious. As far as you mentioned, like the costs, I'm like, if you were to explain, was there an estimated cost of the prior process to a resident to remove a tree versus the new process? Are you able to kind of quantify that cost savings for the resident?
Yeah, so a little bit of the cost breakdown. So when a resident right now applies for a permit, gets approved, when we receive the application, we collect $141 for the inspection fee. So that covers our contracted arborist going out to the property, examining the tree, seeing if it fits within the criteria to either approve or deny. If it is approved, then we collect a $364 fee, and that is mostly covered for removals. And that covers the cost the city incurs having staff work with the applicant, make sure that they're comfortable with the process, that they know what they're going to be needing to move forward with it. So that could look like a GIS mapping, letting them know who to go, how to do that. Getting an arborist, recommending that they get an arborist if they want a different opinion. Just that sort of communication and sort of the guiding, that's what that $364 covers, the staff's time. If it does end up moving forward to having to have some tree replacements on site, then a collection of $424 per tree is then collected. And with our new approach, hopefully with the reduction of the tree replacements, that $424 won't exceed past $424 or just be doubled, just depending on the diameter and height of the tree that's being replaced. That's sort of still going to be a designation of what the replacement's going to look like.
Okay, thank you for that breakdown. And I assume if there's some sort of, we had the windstorms, if the tree is like structurally damaged and threatens a property, is there like a relief valve or staff or the director has a delegated authority to remove it?
Yeah, currently we have it in place in our code that if, say a windstorm comes and there's trees down, the city covers that cost if it's an emergency by a natural disaster. Say a tree in a different situation, if a tree has just been neglected and is dying, we will be looking at potentially not including a permit fee, or maybe the replacement fee is lowered, just something so it's not as burdensome for residents who are impacted by, say, a dead tree or windstorm, or if their insurance is reaching out saying that the lien is too hard over their house, and they really have no other options to either remove it or get a new insurance. So those are sort of the circumstances we're considering and looking at to make sure that it's not as burdensome on our residents financially, and as well as just going through the entire process.
All right. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let's see, next up, Commissioner Kerwin.
Hi there, thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation, and I appreciate your efforts to streamline. And I was just going to ask, I may have missed it, but so where do you stand in the process of defining what is a protected tree or significant tree? I guess you mentioned obviously like native trees, but or it
Mhm.
could be size or height or other things. But has that been defined at this point, or are you somewhere in the process of defining?
Yeah, so we will be shifting to a protected tree list that is going to be primarily native or at least drought tolerant. The city has an approved list of native and drought tolerant trees. It can be found on our permitting page. So that is most likely what's going to be guiding what's included in the list that we will be developing. But it primarily will be native, and that's usually what we have right now. So it's going to look like oaks, it's going to look ash, things that we are trying to encourage residents to replant once that replacement is triggered. But it most likely would be California natives.
So I'm referring to the protected trees that are the focus of the permitting process is now on those.
Yes, it'll be focused primarily, and I know I have those slides in the appendix, so you might see the updated permitting process, and at the top it says just native trees. Or
Okay, so it is just, it's
protective,
not
just
size or
protective.
height or,
Well, the replacement will be based off of the diameter of the trunk, but the actual replacement will be from a list of native trees, California native species, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Mailing.
Oh, I'm sorry, I think my
Oh,
colleague wants
sorry.
to say.
If I can add to that, so right now we have significant trees. That's a tree that has a diameter of 12 inches or greater. We don't have a classification as a protected tree in the city. Every tree, regardless of species, whether it's alive or dead, it requires a tree removal permit to be removed. So significant trees are all species that are 12 inches in diameter or greater. Native species is based on the list that Danielle was mentioning. They're primarily oaks, laurel, sycamore, toyon. What we're trying to shift our attention to is to create a new list called the protected species list, which is going to be very similar to what is currently the native species list and only require tree removal permits for trees that are going to be called protected. So in other words, a lemon tree is not a native species right now in our municipal code, but it might be a significant tree. But with this shift, if someone wants to remove a lemon tree in their backyard, they wouldn't need to use a tree removal permit because it's not an oak or sycamore or laurel, toyon, etc.
perfect, thank you.
Okay.
That's what I was looking for.
And sorry, I didn't mean to cut off that
Nope,
answer.
nope,
Okay,
that's good.
all right. Commissioner Mailing.
I think I've heard from everybody. The presentation was great. I have no questions. I'd like to motion for us to proceed with approving this presentation and the ordinance update, and I'll hand it back over to you, Chairman Hamilton.
Thank you, Commissioner. If you don't mind putting a pin in the motion, I have a few questions,
Please.
as I want.
And I
Uh,
forgot to ask one, but I'll let
okay.
you go. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, I forgot to ask one in my turn. Just curious, what does the permit workload look like these days? Like, is there a large amount of permits that are pending? Is it kind of continuous? Permit comes in, kind of permit goes out through the process. What does the universe look like today?
Yeah, and I'm actually going to ask Philip to pull up the slides one more time so I can just show you what the permit process looks like. It's also
I meant in
included.
terms of the workload. Like, do you have a lot of pending permits today?
I'll pass that over to Michael. He handles those.
Sure. So we have, for our permit process, we have our city arborist, the contracted city arborist, come out twice a month to do these inspections. I believe tomorrow there's maybe 15 properties that they're gonna go to take a look, and that's for either trimming or removal.
1.15 or 5.0?
1.5, sorry,
okay,
1.5. So that's just on one day, but I can say that it is a hefty load on our staff right now because from permit intake, scheduling, collecting the $141, waiting for the inspection, receiving an approval or denial from city arborist, communicating that with the property owner. If it's approved, then we need to ask the applicant to provide us a radius map with mailing labels, at which point staff has to prepare a notification letter. Mail that out, wait 15 days, track if we've received any comments on that notification letter. If we have, write a staff report, come to NREC commission to seek their approval of that permit application. If it gets approved, it has the chance to be appealed, which would then escalate it to the city council level, which implies writing another staff report, preparing all the information, coordinating with the applicant and the appellant to be at the city council on the same day, presenting it to city council. And that could be the process for just one permit. I think in the last year, we've gone to NREC, I want to say 8 or 9 times, and city council twice. And we can get the number as far as exactly how many tree removal permits and trimming permits we've processed over the last year. We have that available. But it is a significant amount of workload.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Commissioner Hernandez had a question.
And I was just going to cover on that too, because I look at the removal of an existing tree removal permit process. We're looking at 3 to 6 months.
Yes.
And maybe I was just lucky. Yeah, it's
Maybe.
because we removed on one property right up the street here, 11 trees, and I think we had it all taken care of in like 3 weeks.
When was this?
Before you were here.
Okay. Okay.
And it was just one of those processes that, we sent out the notices to 100 square feet or whatever it is and did the mailing, filled out the permit and paid the difference and whatever, but it didn't take 6 months. And as a developer, and I'm not, but as a
Right.
developer, it just seems like you have to wait until before you do any work. You've got to sit on the property to get the tree removals before you can put a shovel to it. And at the cost the way of the life is right now, it's getting pretty expensive just to sit on a piece of property.
Right.
And there's some that are sitting for 2 or 3 years now waiting on green lights. But I was just taken back by I just noticed that
Right. For development properties, planning staff usually will indicate to the applicant when they're submitting their documents to contact Public Works if they know that they're going to be removing a tree as part of their land development project. But where we're getting that 3 to 6 months from is, say we just said the city arborist comes twice a week. If you just missed their application, you're waiting 2 weeks just to get that inspection. After which we'll contact the applicant and let them know, for example, your application's approved. The next step is to prepare a radius map and a mailing label, which either the applicant would have to do themselves by contacting the county recorder's office and requesting property owner information and tenant information for parcels within 100 feet, or there are radius map companies that they can hire to call and do that service for them. But the delivery of that radius map can take another 2-3 weeks, let's say, after which we have to prepare the mailing labels and mail them out and wait 15 days. So now you're at a month and a half.
again, that you're doing the mailing. We did
Yeah.
the mailing. We hired the arborist. We did the mailing. And so maybe that helped the process a little bit quicker.
Okay. I mean, yeah, currently we're the ones doing the mailing.
Okay.
So I don't know what it was like.
Yeah, no, we
I-
did our own, we did the mailing and we hired our own arborist too. So,
Okay.
okay, so that helped the process.
Perhaps.
Okay,
Thank you, Sam.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. All right. Again, great presentation. I have a few questions. Noticing. Where does the 100-foot radius concept come from? Is that state law? Is that something we just came up with? Is it consistent with what other cities do? And the reason I ask, as Michael may know, so there is a project not terribly far from my home, as to which I did not receive notice, even though I'm a block away. And the reason is because of the configuration of the property. It's actually on 2 streets. And I believe that the radius is, I'm guessing, based on the main, the frontage of the home and the main street that it faces. And I don't know if it's from the curb or from the front door where that radius is measured. It seems small to me, that 100 feet isn't terribly big, and it really depends on what the trees are. If you're, you know, but if you're talking about 80+ foot trees, that has maybe more significant on a community than impact on a community than a 20, 30 foot tree. So just wondering about the concept of this 100 feet and if it's something that can be expanded. And again, my goal is not to make life more difficult for those wishing to improve their properties, but I also want to make sure folks have notice. And a constant refrain in the city is that I never heard about this, and then it becomes chaotic. So it would be great if we could consider expanding where noticing is needed. If you could expand the radius, I don't know if 200 is the magic number. I don't know if it's 150, 183, but trees have impacts that extend beyond 100 feet, I think. So I think it's something to keep in mind. So maybe just consider that. The charts. So I'm looking at the proposed tree removal permit process charts, and there's one not associated with land development, and then one associated with land development. And these are, I guess they're brown and yellow or green, whatever this color is. So first, what does land development mean, and does that include ADUs?
Sorry, I'm pulling up my definition of it.
I'm almost done, David.
And I took it out.
I'd give you a
Uh,
page number, but I don't have a number.
Yeah, that's okay.
If I can interject, right, land development's any building permit that's required. So if someone's developing something on their property that requires a building permit, that's what would be considered a land development removal.
So just to be clear, if someone's
ADU would
constructing an
be-
ADU, that
right.
would be included within land development.
An ADU, yes.
Yeah, I probably stating the obvious. I just wanted to make sure.
Right,
Okay.
yes.
When I look at the chart, the permit process for removal not associated with land development. So the way this chart reads, and I want to make sure I understood it, the city receives the application, goes to the city arborist. If the city arborist approves the removal of a protected tree, the way this reads, there's no public comment period, and it goes to the director who summarily approves it. Is that how this is supposed to work?
Correct. Yes. So if it is approved by the city arborist, it then goes directly to the director, bypassing that 15-day comment period. And we chose to do that because with updating the code ordinance and the criteria, that's going to fall within what will be approved and what will not be approved and more clearly outlined. There is no space to dispute it as much. So it's either it is, yes, it falls within the criteria, or it doesn't fall within the criteria. And that's sort of what we're trying to update this ordinance framework to achieve.
Okay,
So
so
if I can add on that,
yeah,
please.
please.
So for example, if someone's proposing to remove a tree because it's uplifting their foundation, right? We can send the notification letter out, but if someone appeals it, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that someone gets to appeal the removal of a tree that's causing structural damage to someone's home.
Okay.
Another criteria that we want to add is the issue that we keep hearing over and over again, which is notice of home insurance, cancellation of homeowner's insurance. So if someone is able to produce a letter of notice of cancellation that my homeowner insurance is canceling my homeowner's, policy because of this tree, sending the appeal letter out is a process we can do. But if someone appeals that, then this person can't get homeowner's insurance on their home. So we want to create criteria that is clear. I mean, another one is if the tree is dead. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to send out a notification letter
There's
and
gonna
go
be
to NREC.
specific-
Exactly. There's going to be
Okay.
clear criteria that our city arborist, who's a licensed professional, can identify, yes, this tree is causing structural damage. It's tipping over your retaining wall.
Okay.
It's uplifting your foundation.
So it's the unusual case. It's not, I just want to remove my tree and it's protected, so I want it.
Well, we wouldn't approve that.
Okay.
Right.
So,
If you're trying to remove a otherwise healthy tree that's not causing any structural damage, it's not dead, it's not a hazard, it's
Okay.
not notice of cancellation on your homeowner insurance. And the last criteria we want to add is from the state law that's coming now regarding fire severity zones, where you have to create defensible space around your property. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to send out a notification letter that can be appealed, which goes to NREC. And it's just more burdensome for staff, more burdensome for residents as well, when ultimately they're trying to do the right thing.
Oh, 100%. So I was missing that piece of the
Sure.
specific criteria.
Right, and
Okay.
that's why we removed that notification period.
Got it.
However, if you look on the left side, if our city arborist was to deny an application, and I'll look myself, and our director denies it, then the applicant would have 15 days to appeal the director's decision. And if they do appeal it, that's when we would ask for the 15-day public comment period. We would ask for the notification mailing list, send out a notification letter to their neighbors within 100 feet, and then get their input so that when we bring that to the NREC, the community around them has had an opportunity as well to be notified of this and can come and say, well, this is an otherwise healthy tree. And our city arborist hasn't identified any issue with it.
Okay,
So we're
gotcha.
trying to streamline it in a way that makes sense for when things can be appealed
Sure.
and why.
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you both. Last question. So you get through, again, referring to both of these pages, you get through the whole process and there's an ultimate decision, one way or the other. Let's say there's someone who's unhappy. Happens from time to time. What happens next? Is that's the buck stops here? That's it? Or, and because you mentioned earlier something about city council. So I just wondered if at the end of the line, someone's unhappy, do they still have some ability to go somewhere or not?
So if we've taken an item to the NREC and NREC's approved it, and someone appeals the NREC's decision and we take it to city council and city council approves it, I imagine they can take it up with the higher legal board. I mean, but in our municipal code, it doesn't discuss that, but I'm sure you can go to a Los Angeles County Court to appeal a local agency decision.
Okay, I didn't,
I would have
maybe
to
I'm,
refer with our city attorney.
yeah, no,
whether or not that's something-
the litigation's always an option, but an unfortunate one. So I just didn't see city council on here. And maybe I missed it.
It's under, if you look where the NREC bucket is, the little column, stacked column on the right.
Aha,
If it's approved, it goes to the 15-day appeal period. If appeal is received, it then goes to city council.
Right.
City council then provides the final decision to either approve or deny the permit.
okay, so that's in the not associated with land development contract.
Yes, and then similarly,
If it's a
if
land
it-
development,
oh, yeah.
if it's a land development permit application, it wouldn't go to city council. It would ultimately go to the planning review authority, which is planning commission. And then at that point, if someone wants to appeal a planning commission decision, it would fall under not this chapter of our ordinance, but in chapter 36, and they can they can escalate something to city council ultimately.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Sure.
That's all I had. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank
Any
you.
other comments, questions? Okay, is there anything specifically you need from us other than,
No, I think these were great discussion items, and like I mentioned, we'll be summarizing this all to city council. Yeah, I think that's just it for today. There's no motion needed.
Wonderful.
So we're good to go.
Great,
If I
thank you
could
so
add-
much.
Oh.
Terrific.
If you don't mind, if I can add one thing, and we'll discuss this in a minute with the CIP projects that we're going to be, the presentation we're going to present. But as city council and the community attempts to ramp up these street improvement projects, and we're having some issues now where trees have overgrown, their roots are uplifting sidewalk, curb and gutter, asphalt, and we can't build ADA compliant infrastructure. This is becoming an issue more and more of how do we handle these tree removals. We have an instance right now where we can't build a curb ramp at an intersection because there's a large tree. It's a healthy tree. It's so healthy that it's uplifted the sidewalk significantly and doesn't allow us to construct a curb ramp. So right now it's caution taped with barricade while we work with the community on a resolution. But we sent out a notification letter and the community is not excited about the removal of this tree. But that's just something that we're keeping in mind as we're drafting this ordinance, because once we ramp up these street improvement projects, one requirement is that when you alter a roadway, you have to meet all ADA requirements. That means upgrading your curb ramps, fixing your sidewalk, crosswalks, things of that nature, and how that's going to impact trees where roots have uplifted something and we can't build that is just something we're trying to keep into consideration. So if there's any feedback on that, we'd love to hear that.
Oh, Commissioner Kerwin, go ahead.
I was actually going to make a comment on that, but I didn't want to carry on too long here. But I definitely, I would defer to trying to save that tree in any instance possible with flexible payment, making a larger curb bulb, doing other creative solutions to try to, you know, if you have to take out some parking spots in order to provide more room for a curb bulb or something like that that still protects that tree. I would highly recommend or propose that approach.
I know it's not a motion, but I second that. And I was gonna
Yeah,
say-
absolutely. You know, our intention is to protect the tree as much as we can, but you know, in any of these instances, we ask our arborists to take a look. In this instance in particular, the root can't be pruned because of the lean of the tree. That root system is what's keeping the tree stable. And the other option, which is to trim the branches to lower the weight of the canopy, would leave almost no tree. So you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place with
Yeah.
this instance. But that's something that we're trying to.
Well,
work
thank
on.
you for sharing that. I wasn't keenly aware of that. I would
Sure.
say one, kudos to you and staff for letting the neighbors know what's going on, the noticing. I think it's great.
Yeah.
And then two, I was just wondering, and maybe this is a legal conversation that I don't need to get involved in, but I was wondering with these requirements for accommodations for facilities, are there exceptions for situations like this? Just wondering.
Not necessarily. I mean, unless you're on very steep hill, that's when you can not meet the
Oh, okay.
slope you need. You can't alter the entire hillside
Right.
to reach a slope. So they'll allow you to build they'll allow you to go up to 10 feet or 15 feet away, and whatever slope you catch is the slope that you can establish. But that's far and few in between,
Okay. All right,
unless
just a
we're in the
thought.
hills.
Okay. Thank you
Water
both
hill.
very much. All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
your time.
All right, next up, item 3 on the agenda, the fiscal year 25-26 capital improvement program.
Thank you, commissioners. Just give me a second here to find my bearings. All right. So we went to city council last week and presented a presentation very similar to this one, outlining what our fiscal year 25-26 budget and the 4 years after that will look like. And we want to share that with you as well, just to give you guys an opportunity to take a look at it and see what kind of projects are coming up and what's been budgeted and what will continue to need funding as we move forward. This guy working. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So in this presentation, we're going to take a look at what's the overview of our CIP. We're going to look at our funding sources, which are also included in the packet on the 11x17s that I believe you all have. We'll look at what are some of our assessments that we've done on our facilities, our streets, sidewalks, streetlights, water systems. We'll be able to take a look at what are some current and pending construction projects. We'll take an opportunity to review the spreadsheet of the funding sources to try to navigate that together. You'll see some of our street program that you may have seen before as maps that we've shared, some of our new projects, some efficiencies that we've made along the way to help progress our CIP program more quickly. And we'll have a moment to have questions at the end. So our CIP is a 5-year plan for what type of improvements that we're proposing to make in the city, infrastructure improvements. It connects our general plan, various master planning documents, that could be a bicycle master plan or one water plan, and looks at our annual budget, and then it creates a list of projects and shows what funding sources are going to be used to fund the projects that we're trying to propose. The first year of the CIP plan is what is adopted, which would be the 25-26 budget year. And all the other years are for planning purposes to see what's upcoming and how much money we'll need over the next 4 years to kind of start budgeting for that. It's a requirement of our government code to prepare a CIP plan. And then despite having an adopted budget, we still have to go to city council to award projects. So council and the commissioners will still have the opportunity to comment on these projects, and council has the opportunity to make the final award of a project appropriating these funds. As an overview, how we get to our CIP project is we take our general plan, we take council priorities, we take comprehensive master plans, and we generate a list of projects. From there, we look at our funding sources, we look at community input, and with that list of capital projects, we'll put together our 5-year capital improvement projects, taking into consideration what our priorities, what the community wants, what council wants, and what our master plans tell us that we need to do. And then with that 5-year, we narrow it down to what we're taking on in our first year. And when we look at our revenue and expenditures table, just to kind of explain it here, you'll see a column that'll say appropriated 24-25. That's how much funding was appropriated July 1st of 2024. Projected is how much we are anticipating spending by June 30th this year. And then you'll see 2 columns, those are the most critical ones, which will be a carryover. So if you subtract what was appropriated with what is projected, that's your carryover into the next fiscal year. And then the new proposed is any new funding, additional funding that is not in the carryover that we're proposing in our fiscal year 25-26 budget. So if you wanted to see what our fiscal year 25-26 budget would be for the West Side Reservoir design / construction, you would add 300,000 and 500,000, and we would have $800,000 in 25-26. These are a list of our funds. We have many, and a lot of them have a specific purpose for them. And the ones that are highlighted in yellow are the ones that are budgeted, or some budget allocation has been made from these funds for the fiscal year 25-26. The major ones to look out for are 104, 105, and 108. 108 being the Fair Oaks ITS project, 104 being our general fund for street improvements, 105 being our facilities general fund. But we have 233, which is measure R. We have 236, which is measure M. We have 237, which is SB1. SB1 money we get every year if we meet our maintenance of expenditure or effort. MOE, effort, maintenance of effort.
Yeah.
Every year will be allocated. We have to spend $1.4 million from our 104 account to be given, I think it's 635,000 into our SB1 account. But this is a list of all of our funds that are used, and you'll see in the spreadsheet that you have in front of you as well. Yeah, we can go to that project and we'll see. I don't have these memorized yet.
Sorry, my question was about the West Side Reservoir, if there was a specific fund for that. And so,
Thank you, Councilmember Ferguson. So on the very last sheet that I flipped through, you'll see we have a West Side Reservoir design construction, and currently it's all being used from 500 fund, which is our water enterprise fund. That's what's paying for the design and this preliminary design and the design of the actual construction for that project, as an example.
Michael, on this sheet that you, 239 Measure W fund. I'm not familiar with Measure W. I'm guessing what it is, but
Right.
I thought I'd just ask.
It has to do with water. We all pay into that fund on our property taxes every year, and that money gets pooled and distributed and awarded through Safe Clean Water Association. We're a committee member. We have some voting rights. Cities all put in projects to be awarded a project with that funding source, and the purpose of it is to, in water infiltration projects, water capture projects, water, cleaning, lowering bacteria levels in water. So we have one right now that we're working with the city of Pasadena. That's our Arroyo Seco water reuse project. It's a joint venture, city of South Pasadena and Pasadena together put in a project along the Arroyo Seco to capture water, infiltrate it, clean it, release it back into the Arroyo Seco channel.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Sure. All right. Whoops. This is our assessment and our needs that we've identified. We've had various studies to try to figure out and plan long-term. So we have a library assessment completed, and we've identified we need to spend about $2 million over several different projects over each year for the next 10 years. Roofs, we're looking at having a contractor, Garland. They're providing us an estimate on that. Golf course is pending further financial analysis. The parks assessment is underway. We know about some immediate traffic signal repairs. We know we've presented the street improvement plan to you. That's the one that we've presented multiple times, our pavement management plan. So that's been completed. The water was done by our One Water master plan. So this is a list of just where we're at as far as different asset classes that we have in public works and how far we've come along with getting a full understanding of what our needs are going to be in the long term. And with that, we've generated this table. You'll see 3 columns: near term, midterm, and long-term needs. So in the near term, for our potable water systems, we've identified that we need to be spending $50 million. That's within the next 6 years. We have a couple of larger projects underway that are going to be using those funds, some being, West Side Reservoir. We have a project that we just awarded. It's about $3 million being used in the water infrastructure. And we have several others. We're moving towards this. Some call it the one dig, some call it the fix it once, fix it right approach, where you're paving a street, you're fixing the water line, you're fixing sewer problems, you're upgrading your curb ramps, upgrading street lights. And, you're in there, you're impacting the neighborhood once, and then you're leaving. After that, from the years 30 through 40, I can go through each line of these, but it gives the idea with each column is showing pretty much what our projections are anticipating. And the column all the way to the right is showing between now and 2050, what we're anticipating the total needs to be for potable water: 192 million. Stormwater improvements, 41 million. Sewer improvements, 15 million, etc. These are some of the projects that we have underway right now. This is the Berkshire and Gravalia Pocket Park. The contractors have been working for 3 months, almost 4 months on this. They've completed grading. They've completed excavation for retaining walls. They've installed conduits for electrical lines. SoCal Edison installed a power pole. They've completed irrigation lines. And they're making great way. The projects and the picture on the right actually is the storm tech unit. So both of these parks are going to capture water on site and allow it to infiltrate into the ground. There'll be lighting, there'll be seating areas, decorative walls, and there's a specific funding for this. So if we were to look at the spreadsheet, you'll see that there's some funding from RPOSD, which I don't remember the acronym, what it stands for right this second, but there is some funding sources for this that we use for this project.
Michael, are those projects on a similar pace? Are they both being completed around the same time?
They're
estimated?
being completed simultaneously by one contractor. They'll move their crews around. So one crew will finish grading, that crew will move to the next one, and then the conduit crew or,
Right.
whoever's going to do electrical or irrigation will start here while the grading continues there. And they're at the same time. So both of these projects are anticipated to be completed by September.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Sure. We've had some library improvements. So we did some improvements with the air conditioning systems, the teen rooms, and we awarded the senior flooring project recently. They're starting on Monday, actually. So unfortunately, from June 16th through, I believe, July, I forget, I think it's July. All the dates are, I'm confusing different projects, but it's a 20 working day project. From July 16th to, I believe it's July 15th. So June 16th through July 15th is going to be their 20 working days. They're going to be complete with that. But unfortunately, the senior center will be closed during that time. We can't allow residents to access an active construction site. But afterwards, the floorings will be done. The boards along the edge of the walls will be completed. And we're also planning on painting some of the walls in there. Yes, so we have other projects, and they're on this spreadsheet that talk about ADA improvements, water improvements, roofing, improvement needs. We outline it, all of those. We have it under, this spreadsheet. Yes, so we have a project manager working on that. They're, augmented staff, but if we look under the library project, that's page 4 of 10 on this packet, you'll see we have library security improvements, library roof and waterproofing, fire alarm control systems. We have a lot of several exterior park lights, painting and protective coatings, restroom improvements. So we have a lot of different needs that we've identified as part of the assessment of our library. And over this next 5 years, a lot of this is unfunded, but over the next 5 years, we plan on knocking these out, a couple at a time as staffing allows us to allocate resources to it. Right. Exactly. Some things we don't have the funding for right now, but we're proposing that it'll get done in fiscal year 27, 28.
Yep.
So we
Understood.
just put the number there of what we're anticipating that would cost. And then when we get to that point, or from now until that point, we can sort of budget for it. And then when we get to that point, we have the money and we are able to start doing the design for it. Or hire a contractor to come in and do the work if it doesn't require a design.
So I don't know if that would be an idea to consider in the future when we're doing these spreadsheets is appropriated, projected, what we have budgeted actually happening in 2025, because I've been in the commission now for over 3 years and I've seen some of the same line items.
Sure.
Which I understand we have budget, shortfalls and all that stuff. So I completely understand, but it would be good to see, okay, hey, when are we going to take care of some of that stuff? Just
Right.
bringing
Thank
it
you.
up.
So with that in mind, if we look at the columns that say carryover from 24-25 and new proposed for 25-26, that's money that we're going to have starting July 1st. And these are the projects that we are going to be working on. So if we have money adopted in our budget for these projects, we can start doing a design. We can start looking at, getting proposals from contractors to come and fix some of these issues. It's the ones that don't have any money in those columns that are unfunded. So for example, on page 3, about halfway down, there's War Memorial floor replacement. And you'll see there's been no appropriation in 24-25. There's no carryover because there was no appropriation in 24-25, and there's no new proposed in 24-25. But we're suggesting in 26-27, we can start with $20,000 from our 105 account, which is our facilities and building maintenance account, but we'll still need $275,000 from somewhere. There is no funding source for that right now to actually be able to complete the work, for example. But to answer your question, Commissioner Malling, anything that has a carryover or any project that has a number under the carryover or the new proposed means that it's either in design or it's in construction now, but work is being done on it. If there's no money in there, then we have nothing to charge to.
Okay,
We
so
wouldn't
then
be able to
we've
hire.
got it here then. So,
Right.
okay, so that's great news. So if I'm looking at page 4 of 10, under the roof and waterproofing, we appropriated 166, we projected 68, but we're actually going to be investing $98,000.
So we appropriated 166,000 as of July 1st of 2024. We're planning on spending by the end of this month $68,600, which means we have $98,000 remaining that's being carried over into the next fiscal year. And we have nothing proposed under the new proposed because we don't anticipate needing more money to complete that project. Of
Okay, got it. Understood. Thank you.
course.
Chair, may I ask, can you speak to the process for prioritizing these funds against these projects? Like how,
Sure. I'll
I'll just say, I mean, I've read the priorities from the council and it's a very high level, very, I think it's informative, but it speaks at a very higher level. And I guess when you get into the details of you're choosing then to put, these are discretionary funds against a future, $200,000 against the library roof next year versus some other project that could use those funds, say mission slow streets or something else. So how are you, those are all discretionary funds. How do you make those trade-offs?
Well, it's a combination of what's something that's a dire need right now. So if for the sake of the library, if we have a roof that's leaking, it's impacting our use of the building, that's something we need to address more frequently. Or in the case of the fire station doors, the fire department had failing doors. We would have to repair them consistently. So that's something that puts it higher on our list. Um, it's a combination of what issues we're hearing from our community, what issues we hear from council, what issues we hear from commissioners, um, and then what funding sources we have at the time, right? So if something's a large ask from the general fund, we need to plan for it in advance. We can't just show up June, what are we, 11th, and tell them by July 1st, I need $20 million from the general fund. We have to budget that in advance so that we know 26, 27, we have this big project coming and the city can budget that over 2 years or something like that. But it's based on if we have a dire need, something's not being able to be utilized correctly. And then also, you know we have to spend 1.5 million from our 104 account, for example, to get the SB1 match. So we prioritize spending that funding source, after which we can save our general fund and we'll try to use Fund 233 or 236 or 237. Those are Measure M, Measure R fundings, SB1 fundings. Or if we have a specific grant for a project, then obviously we use that funding source to pay for that grant. Anything transportation related can be used from Prop A, Prop C.
Councilmember Ferguson.
Yeah, I think kind of to your point, to your question, Commissioner Kerwin, that that SIP overview slide,
Mhm.
ideally, like when we have these priorities, there were things that were identified 4 years ago. And we're working through a 5-year capital cycle. And so if they're getting executed this year, ideally we've been planning for them in the past. And then now we're just kind of executing. We've kind of refined it along those times to either figure out how we're going to pay for it along the way, if we're going to apply for grants, whatever else we're going to do. And so the idea is that we have our budget cycle also aligns with this, right? So then that
Mhm.
way, when we look at our finance for next year, and this, I will say, as like simple as that sounds, it's something that's has required some changes within the way we operate within the city. And I think what I find very encouraging is the new city manager that we've taken on has really put his hands into aligning the budget with the plans that are here, because it's like some of our highest percentage wise spend, especially with our road stuff. And so it's really about this is really about looking ahead and planning ahead, and for things that aren't already prioritized, right? And so the idea is that you're not going to reshuffle these as you're starting to execute them, because of how costly they are and how much money it took to essentially get to where you're at. And where we've kind of struggled in some senses has been things like those roof replacements and whatever. They're small, relatively percentage wise, small cost items. But then so that encourages people to say, oh, we can defer it. But then we ran into like collateral damage happening as a result of it. So then your cost is a lot higher, and it's not something that you're anticipated. And so if we can, the idea is to kind of streamline and optimize this the small capital improvement stuff, maintenance stuff, to kind of eliminate the unanticipated expense that you're not really controlling. So hopefully that's background is helpful.
That helps. Yeah, I guess I was trying to get the best time if this is at the discretion of certain folks of what is a critical need, what's urgent. Different people have different
Right.
ideas. I mean, certainly you'll hear members of the public express some safety concerns with, roads and other things that are very
Yes.
critical in their view. I guess, and it's a matter of how do we, when's the best time for folks to engage and say, oh, you're saying this is the highest priority, but maybe some other folks think something else is a
Yeah,
higher priority.
I would think one great opportunity to kind of like directly answer that would be like during the budget process, like when the city's doing the budget review and we're doing the budget for the following year. The other thing that I would say is that one of the things we're kind of hoping to do with like some of the structure of the commissions is that like if the commission is hearing that from the public or commissioners, or that's what they're hearing from their constituents, to agendize that, talk to the chair of the commission, agendize it so that way it can make its way to council to get onto, you know, the budget within the budget planning, or at least we know to put it on for next year's budget. We're not going to catch it for this year's cycle. So ideally, as a commissioner, I hope you're feeling empowered to communicate that so that way we can, you know, make proper note of it.
Yeah, thank you.
And if I can add to that, I've also seen some cities, they'll do citywide surveys, you know, asking its residents, what's the most important thing to you? Is it the condition of your roads? Are your roads too dark? Are you waiting too long at traffic signals? You know, or do you feel unsafe crossing street or what not, right? And they get an idea of what kind of issues that they feel their residents, and perhaps we've done that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
there was one
Uh,
done not that long ago.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we take all those things into consideration and we build the budget.
Quick question, quick comment. July 1st is not far from now. Is the budget for this coming fiscal year set, approved, done?
Is this the finance commission meeting?
No. No way.
No, we are not.
Oh.
We've stated, we've very deliberately pushed it, but we're going to be a little bit delayed in our getting our budget
Okay.
out. And part of the reason why is because we've had a large cleanup effort happening within our finance department, and also with like, we were going back and reconciling previous years because we wanted to start from a very solid footing.
Okay.
And so the idea was not to jump to meet the July date and have built a budget on shaky footing. And so I'm not sure if you saw the last council meeting, but there was a lot of like funds that we went through and kind of cleaned up and consolidated. We had a motion to kind of push that stuff back into the general fund. So we're off to really cleaning up that side of the house a bit.
Okay.
And so I'm feeling very good about this, especially this year. I'm feeling good as it'll be a great step. And I think next year's budget, especially, I would anticipate being on time and being significantly more solid than we've seen in the city.
Okay, that's great. And there was no judgment built into
No,
the
right.
question.
I
was
didn't
just
take any. I didn't take any.
truly unaware. And the reason I asked is, maybe it's too late for this coming fiscal year, I'm not sure, but it would be great. And I won't be here a year from now, but, I mean, I'll be around, but, I hope, it'd be great if the input of the commission could be sought as the budget is being worked on so that we could say, hey, these are the things, right? We know there's certain capital projects that they have their path, but here are some things we'd like the council to consider funding this coming year, right? So then we can have some participation in that.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry for that long interruption, Michael, but please
No problem.
continue.
All right, so we talked about the library improvements that we're doing. The senior flooring project is starting on Monday. Fire station door project, we mentioned a little bit earlier, that got completed as well. And on the right is our fiscal years 20 through 24 sidewalk and ADA ramp CDBG project. This was funded by a community development block grant. The city hadn't utilized its approximately $100,000 a year we receive from the block grant. And so we were able to combine all the past year's funding sources and awarded one large project. And we believe we built approximately, I think it's 42 curb ramps citywide. And these are either at locations that didn't have curb ramps or they did, but they were substandard. We targeted, the picture on the right is by the high school. But after that, we went to near the pocket parks that we're building. We went to some of our residential communities. By the Garfield Park as well, we built some curb ramps where there was none. People would have to step over a curb to enter a walkway into a park. So we tried to improve that.
And the work on Meridian was that same project?
The work along Meridian
Yeah.
was all part of that project.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Mhm. So we've kind of already been doing this. This slide was meant to give us an opportunity to go through this other packet that we were looking through. But what I wanted to highlight was these on this first sheet, the ones that are colored purple. So at the top, the 104 fund, that's highlighted because that's the one that I've been mentioning. We have to spend $1.4 million a year from to receive a SB1 match. The ones a little bit further down the page, 233, 236, and 239, those are Measure R, Measure M, Measure W. Measure R and Measure M is a local match that we get every year from Metro. Measure W is the Clean Water Act that we use for water improvement projects, or I shouldn't say water improvement projects, but water capture, infiltration, cleaning projects. And then 214, that's the Rogan Federal Transportation Fund. That's the fund that's being used to pay for the Fair Oaks North-South Corridor ITS project. You could see we have a carryover of 995,000. That's to continue paying for the design. And then we anticipate starting July of 2026, we'll be in construction, and that's when we're going to be suggesting that council adopt the remainder $8 million to pay for that project. That's the traffic signal improvements along the Fair Oaks corridor. We have the Measure M MAT Cycle 1 grant. That's our Fremont Huntington project. We're also getting close to putting out an RFP to bring on a design firm for that project. And also we're looking at bringing in augmented staff to completely manage the Fair Oaks, North-South Fair Oaks project and this Fremont project, because these are on a critical path. They have to be completed and closed out by it's the end of 2027. Construction completed and closed out by the end of 2027. So we have essentially a year to get through design, bid, award, and construct the projects. And then that entire row there, 243, Fund 243, Measure R Mobility Improvement Program, that has a total proposed of $56 million. This is money that we received from the 710 cancellation. And, you know, this money is very little of it is being appropriated. It's mostly for concept designs and trying to get ideas of what we can do with it. We have some ideas of improving the Fair Oaks Corvalia freeway on-ramp, off-ramps, because that's one of the intersections that we hear a lot of issues about, but that money can be used. There's some large ideas that we've seen and some more simpler ones. So that's something that we're going to need to spend some time researching and figuring out what the best use of that money is. And we'll seek input from the commission and as well as council and our city manager.
But we have $56 million?
Yes, I think.
Can't we use that for?
Yeah, we have that one.
A specific.
I think there's more. I think this 56 is just what's being proposed within the next 5 years. I think there's more than that.
I think there's 70.
But
Yeah.
I mean,
Thank
as
you.
I understand it, it's obligated for that project, for that
Exactly.
interchange project. So we as a city would have to decide we are not proceeding with that project, de-obligate it from the
Exactly.
FTIP, and then decide what we want to use it for, then re-obligate those new projects.
Right. I meant
So
like
we can't just like
what we
spend, we
want.
can't just like go spend that now. right?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
I meant in what way do we want to make a large loop to get onto the freeway? Do we want to make a different,
Yeah.
that's how I meant how we want to spend that money. But yes, you're absolutely right. We can't just use that to, somewhere else in the city on whatever else we want.
So we can't move the money to any other specific thing. It has to be in this type of.
I believe that is the purpose of it. It was meant for the 710 cancellation, but maybe Commissioner Dunn.
I think as I understand it, it would have to be a formal process because that project, that's a quote unquote project in the FTIP, the Federal Transportation Improvement Project list. So as I understand it, the city would have to go and decide, we don't want
I
to do
believe
it.
I would have to go
I
back
think
and double check.
de-obligate it from that project, decide what they want to spend the money on and re-obligate
Is that a
it.
hard process?
Because, yeah, it's federal money.
Yes.
Oh.
You can do it.
Or we'd have to get very creative with how we're defining the work that we're doing.
Hang on one sec, Commissioner Hammond.
Yeah, I think both Commissioner Abelson, or Chair Abelson and I have run into this one a little bit, but there are conditions to the use type that have opened up since the initial plans. So that's why it is becoming, back on the table to reconsider if the freeway off-ramp, on-ramp is the best use, but it still has conditioned use to related to transportation. So it's like we can't move that to, say, any other infrastructure project. There's certain conditions that have to be considered.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. It has to be used for transportation
Yeah.
purposes.
You know where I'm
Thank-
getting.
Yeah.
Take that 70 million and put it to the street improvement, because if there's the number one discussion that comes up when I say I'm a city commissioner, their response is, hey, Dave, when's the street gonna get fixed?
Yeah.
Right now, I get it. You
Yeah,
mentioned.
that funding would
Right.
not be able to.
But this is all, it's
It
federal
cannot,
money.
yeah.
I get it,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to figure out in this budget, where can we reallocate if at all possible? Because that is the number one question that we get from residents. And then I have to tell them that there's a process that we're trying to do everything at the same time.
No, I think.
It used to be regulated to more throughput issues.
Yeah.
But within the Fair Oaks corridor, like related to 710 easement. So it can't be used for just regular street maintenance or improvements citywide. What it has opened up to is more like mobility and pedestrian safety. So we can implement, new improvements to the infrastructure that helps improve on bus transportation, public safety, that will also improve on the streets as well. But it would need to be related kind of to that north-south and through the city. Is that
Yes.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
In other words, we wouldn't be able to use this money to pave a residential street.
Correct.
But speaking of which, I think you're going to start talking about the
Exactly.
street project, yeah?
Thank you.
How's that for a segue?
So just very quickly, this is a table summarizing what what was appropriated in 24-25, 17.8 million. Encumbrances are monies that we have awarded a purchase order for. So there is $7.261 million worth of purchase orders. So for example, our Gravalia Pocket Park project, $2.4 million encumbrance, although maybe we've only spent $400,000 or $500,000 to date, but between now and oh, I thought you guys didn't see the same table I was looking at. So for example, the Pocket Park project, it might be a $2.3 million encumbrance, and we've spent $500,000 to date, but we still anticipate between now and September, when the project's finishing, to spend that remainder amount. So encumbrance, for sake of discussion, is monies that we have planned to spend before the end of the year. We may have some cost savings where we can unencumber that money and then use it for something else, but generally, most of it is going to be spent. Expenditures is what we've actually spent to date. Projected is what we plan on spending by June 30th. Then we carry over the remainder. So if you take 17.8 million and subtract 3.7 million, you'll have 10.7 million. And then the new proposed 25-26 is 14 million. So our requested budget for 25-26 is $24.5 million. And a majority of that $24.8 million is made up with these 12 projects. So if I go from the top, you'll see the Pocket Park project that we're discussing. You'll see sewer system repair, rehabilitation, replacement project. In July, we plan on coming to council to award a $1 million contract to clean and CCTV all of our sewer lines in the city. That's going to help us identify where we have to make repairs. We know where we have some, but these will identify further ones. And with this information, we can award a contract to come in to repair these sewer systems to help get us out of this sewer consent decree. We have our street repavement and repairs projects. We'll get into that in a minute, but that's essentially the project we're about to award next week. That's a $7.5 million project. This is our slurry project that's started this week. And then we have.
Wait, hold on one second.
Yes.
So the 7.4 million, that's what we're planning to spend this coming fiscal year on street repair.
That's with
There-
one project, but not all of that is for asphalt. The $7.6 million project, about half of that is water line improvements.
Ah, okay. And it's not all slurry,
No,
correct? Okay,
no.
there's reconstruction as well.
About 3 million of that project is a full reconstruction,
Okay,
grind and
just-
overlay or reconstruction.
Just making sure.
Sure.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah, we have a separate project right now. That's the slurry seal project. That's a $600,000 one. We awarded in April.
Okay,
Mhm.
great, thank you.
Sure. And then we're also adding some maintenance monies that we can use to bring on a contractor to just do routine maintenance of uplifted sidewalk, damaged curb and gutter, potentially sewer repairs, striping improvements. So not all of it, things that are typically done by internal staff. We're seeing that the need is there to bring in a contractor to come in and do that sidewalk work more quickly, more efficiently, and fix any damages that we have in the city on a routine basis. So we're allocating some money to be able to bring on those types of purchase orders and get that work done. augment our staff's ability. You'll see the Fremont Avenue Huntington Corridor project in fiscal year 25-26, $2.3 million will be adopted. That's going to be used for the design as well as staff augmentation to help push that design into the bidding stage. Same exact thing with the North-South Corridor Fair Oaks project. We have $1.2 million. The rectangular rapid flashing beacons project, that's the Mission in Fairview, Mission in Diamond, and Fremont Linden. We had lost the federal funding source for that, but we were able to go back and secure that. And then West Side Reservoir, I think we discussed it a little bit earlier today. We have $800,000 to get us through this preliminary design and into the actual design of the project. This is and those 12 projects add up to about 19.6 million out of our 25 million, which is 80% of it.
So when you say requested, this hasn't been approved?
This is what is going in front of council to be adopted into the next fiscal year, 25-26 budget.
How do you feel about it? Yeah,
What happened? I mean, things get deferred
sure.
for some period of time, and sooner or later you have to pay to fix them.
Yeah.
And so, and this is not it. This is us getting the ball rolling and trying to get a better cadence to some of this O&M
Sure.
to kind of chip into a backlog. But
Do we have the money?
we should be, we should be okay. Based the preliminary reporting from the audits that we've been doing show that we're okay. And
Perfect.
so, for the initial phase of this, we're okay. As we continue along this, we might need to figure something out if that's but we can only, the further you look, the more murky it can be,
Yeah.
So, within this next kind of cycle, we're looking so far so good,
That's awesome.
so.
Great.
Michael, quick question. Just the first item, pocket parts. So carryover from this current fiscal year's 1.7 and change,
Yes.
nothing new proposed. So the 1.7, that's been budgeted and is funded. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So when it says requested,
Yes.
can you help me understand?
The column on the right is if you add up the carryovers with the new proposed, that's what would be the requested could be, we can exchange that with the adopted 25-26.
But you already have that money
We have it in our current fiscal year. We're
Right.
carrying it over into our
and
next
you need
fiscal year.
approval to do that. And that's what
Right.
that means. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Now,
Right.
So they're carrying it over, put it into this fiscal budget, that way we don't take that money and put it to someone.
So it's not like it's sitting in a lockbox.
Right. Well,
Conjures up other things.
it's essentially if we have a contractor they have a contract, we are awarded this much money. We can't, take that out of our budget now and then they can't be paid for
Right.
completing
But we
the
have to
project.
re-budget it.
We have an obligation to that contractor to pay them for the work that we
Okay.
awarded to them. So
And
it have to be carried
that's
in.
what encumbrance means, right? That we're
Encumbrance.
obligated to pay those monies.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But the new proposed is what's going to be debated probably.
That's the new money.
Right.
Because,
Things that are that were in design and now they're getting into construction. So we need to appropriate the funds into the next fiscal year. That's kind of what we're discussing with the upcoming 25-26 budget. You probably have seen these maps before, but we'll go through them quickly. This is the project that we had a bid open on Monday, approximately $7.5 million of street grind and overlay, full reconstruction, curb ramp upgrades, street light upgrades, water line removal and replacement, sewer repairs. We'll go to council next week. It's been budgeted for, and
It's
probably will start in September.
awesome.
and
the
the segments that are highlighted or
Yes,
colored.
sorry about that.
Just
So,
wanted to make sure.
you'll see a portion of Mylan from Oak to Edgewood, Edgewood from Mylan to, I believe that's Wayne. Up in the right corner in the green zone, that's Mill Road. We have Maple between, and the text to speech is covering it, but it's between Huntington and Meridian, and then from Meridian to Primrose. I believe that's Primrose. and then Onion to Knoll from Fremont to Primrose, Arroyo Verde on the left there. And that's where we had a water line break last year. So with this project, we're going to be fixing that as well. We get a lot of calls asking if we're familiar with the damage there.
Oh, and we had added that segment to the list years ago, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the color code, Michael,
I'm sorry.
the color code?
Red, so the color is relating to the PCI index, pavement condition index. Red indicates between 0 and 40. Orange indicates between 40 and 60. 100 being your street's brand new, 0 meaning your street's in awful shape.
Thank you. That's somewhere here.
I'm sorry?
That
Not in
led-
this presentation, but it is on our website under the pavement management plan. Yeah. Sorry about that. But you'll see in a second here, this is the slurry project that we just awarded. All the blue is streets that are between, I think it's 70 and 100 or 75 and 100. So these are streets that are relatively in good shape. So the idea is you slurry them now before they get into worse shape, and it's a cost savings in the long run. So these are streets that slurry would be an appropriate, pavement method to save us money in the long run. You seal the surface, water doesn't intrude, you don't get as many potholes. And then as with this project, we're also doing selective AC saw cutting and removal and replacement. So we're not just covering an underlying problem. We'll fix the underlying problem and then we'll slurry over it. Sure.
Oh, sorry. A couple of years ago, we came up with a list of streets to be slurried, and it was, went through the process. So a number of them are appearing on this chart. There's at least one that's not.
Okay.
And so I'm just wondering if there had been some intervening step where certain streets were removed, or if you know
If
anything
you let me
about.
know what street that is, I can email you and let you know where that fell in our pavement management plan.
Okay, all right. I'll
Maybe it
send
fell into a category that slurry is no longer appropriate for, and we're planning on doing a
Oh, well, that-
repaving in the future.
That may be it. It's it's Grand Avenue between Mission Street and just south of Hermosa.
I would have to go back
Yeah,
and check.
I'll
Yeah.
send it to you.
It could have fallen into a different category, or it could have also, I think I remember from this presentation with Ted that was doing different regions that also kind of tied in with other improvement
Mhm.
timelines. So it might be in another year cycle.
Right.
It might be so good
So this
compared
is
to the
only-
other bad ones. that-
This is only for the purple, orange, and the pink zone. Grand's not in any of
They're
those
in
zones.
zone.
You'll notice the
So
yellow,
that's
red,
where your-
blue, and
That explains it.
green.
Your
Thank you.
Grand Street isn't in that zone. And
Okay, I just spared you an email.
Yeah.
Perfect.
you.
Thank you.
Yes.
To those zones. I mean, it's really about, you remember that we kind of talked about you were familiar with the background behind the zones and all that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So I didn't know we were applying that to slurry too,
Yes.
but that's great. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Being one contractor in one area, it's just easier to manage.
Makes
construction.
sense.
Philip, do you mind going to the next slide, please? This is our Fremont Huntington project. It's entering into the request for proposal stage to bring on a design consultant. This slide is on this previous slide that you were looking at with the orange and green rows. It's a breakdown of how that money is being spent. So you'll see we have a fiscal year 25-26 street maintenance project. That's a follow-up slurry project. The Marengo maintenance and improvement project, we're proposing $100,000. That's to start getting the design ready. We can't just slurry that. There's some striping and traffic calming elements on Marengo that we would have to address with this project. We wouldn't want to just stripe over it and then lose all of our, it's near school and it's a high pedestrian zone.
There isn't a plan yet for that, right? In terms of what,
That's what the $100,000 is going to be spent for, to bring on a consultant, start preparing a striping
Okay.
plan and get that project rolling so that in the following fiscal year, we'll be able to stripe it or slurry it and restripe it.
okay. And you'll share that with us at some point.
Right. As we get into the design stage, we bring that to the commission and, we'll get your feedback and input.
Thank you.
Mission Arroyo Pasadena that's a very small project, but it's a very complicated intersection. We have some photos showing that. Indiana and Pasadena reconstruction project. We have a design consultant on board. They're designing Indiana between Monterey and Villa Del Rey and some of the ancillary streets. That's in design stage. And that's why you see $441,000 just for the design of that. And we don't anticipate needing additional funding for just the design, but we will when we go to construction. Fiscal year 24-25 and 25-26 sidewalk replacement ADA ramp project. This is CDBG funding. So as I was mentioning earlier, we get a slightly over $100,000 every year from CDBG, and we're going to combine 2 different years into one larger project in the upcoming fiscal year. Orange zone reconstruction. If I go back in the bottom right corner, that's our orange zone. So that's the next zone that we've identified to do this full reconstruct, fix it once, dig once approach. So just to start on the design of that, because that's a reconstruction of 4.5 miles of roadway and water lines, sewers, street improvements, street light. The design of that, we're anticipating a little over $2 million, but it's also going to be like a $20 million construction project. So 10% for design is right about where we anticipate these projects being. This is our fiscal year 25-26 slurry project.
There it is.
Grand is there.
Okay.
And there's the Marengo maintenance project. So this is the one that we're going to start doing design for and then come back and, come back to do the design and come back to do the slurry and the striping. That small red dot, that's the Mission Arroyo Pasadena intersection. We have some preliminary designs of what it can look like. As this develops more, we bring it to the commission to receive input and feedback. This is also what's going to tie eventually into the Mission Slow Streets project that we presented last time.
Commissioner Dunlap.
Yes.
Are you in design of this, or is this like PAD, project approval, environmental determination?
This is very preliminary.
So it's pre.
We're going to go into, with this design or with this preliminary, concept plan, we'll go to a consultant and ask for a full design.
Okay.
And once they start doing that, we'll get a better picture of.
At what time do we want to go into it now and talk about this, or is this, is there a time when
I would say
we'll
no.
want
We
to
can
talk?
definitely add this to the work plan, but this is just for showing what kind of things we're working on this year.
Right. I didn't, when I hear you're in design, it seems like they're going to take
Right,
this.
sorry. I
Take this to
misspoke.
100%.
Very preliminary
Okay.
design. Yes, very, concept plan is where we're at.
And
right
I didn't mean we wouldn't talk about it. I just meant tonight. I thought, okay.
So I'm sorry though,
Sure.
but on that point, the money that you have budgeted for that, I saw that and I said, oh, so the project's gonna be done, I think it was next fiscal year.
180,000 would just be for the design of that. I think the full cost of the project is, slightly over $1 million. It's
I guess so. I keep seeing all these budgeted amounts and I'm thinking, oh, we're gonna deliver some of these projects, but really most of this sounds like is just design.
yeah. So
If
it's
there'd be a
very
way
com-
to
yeah.
designate design versus actual construction, and I guess my broader statement would just be, I'm not a fan of spending a lot of money on a bunch of designs if we're not doing a lot of the construction. Like, we should be funding the construction to get work done.
Well, we
That's
wouldn't
what I
be able to
hear
go into
from folks.
construction without going into design to prepare a set of plans, specifications, and estimates. That's what this stage is for. So if we're allocating money in this upcoming fiscal year for design, it's because we need a consultant to prepare plans for us to be able to advertise it, receive bids, come to council for an award, and then construct.
Yeah. Well, for instance, all the design on this orange zone, you're saying $7 million or something, or I forget.
2 million.
2 million.
Yes.
In order to do 20 million, but when are we gonna have $20 million to do that quadrant, that one zone?
Right. I mean, the city manager is aware of that. I think they're strategizing with our finance department and city council as far as what we need to do to get that funding source. We do have money in our 104 account. We have money in our Measure M, Measure R, SB1 accounts. And really, at least in my understanding is that in fiscal year 25-26 and 26-27, we're pretty confident that we have these monies. It's after fiscal year 26 26, 27. So 27, 28, 28, 29, 29, 30, where we need to start looking at how we're going to be budgeting for these projects.
At our last meeting, though, I recall, I believe Ted was saying that this segment, he expected it to be constructed by 27. I'm just looking
In
to see,
fiscal year 26, 27, right?
yeah,
'cause
is
that
there
would be-
funding in here for that?
If you were to go to page
Let's see,
7 of 10,
yeah,
there's the Mission Arroyo Pasadena intersection in the middle. You'll see new proposed in 25, 26, 180,000. That's for the design. And then in fiscal year 26, 27, and 27, 28, we're budgeting 1.3 or 1.2 million and 350,000. That would be for the construction. So
And
we
would
would
the-
start the design now, and then next year, once the design is complete, we can go into
And
construction.
with this Mission Arroyo Pasadena intersection improvement, would we be able to allocate funds from the Measure R mobility improvement, that 70 million or 58 million? Would we be able to take the funds from there to do this improvement?
I would have to go back and double check. I don't believe so. I think that has to be used for like a north-south movement. Fair Oaks typically,
That
You
would
know.
be a great qualification, in my opinion, but I get it, you know?
yeah, we have other
Yeah.
funding sources we can use.
Yeah, we Measure M.
Yeah, Measure M, Measure R,
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
SB1.
But you don't have a cost yet because you don't have a design, right? So,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, you have this placeholder as 1.2 or 1.5 million for construction.
Right.
But once you do the design, you'll know if this is
We'll
going to be a
get
$3 million
closer and we-
project
You
or.
know, we
And
adjust
also
it.
Prioritize, right? Like if we do the design, detailed design comes back and it gives a sticker shock, we might not prioritize doing that for the sake of what other things we might have to sacrifice by taking on that cost in that fiscal year. Right,
Or we can scale it down,
right,
maybe.
exactly.
I think the
But-
only concern that I have, and I think what you were referring to is, we're doing all these different designs. I just want to make sure before we start on these designs, do we have the allocated money potentially for the future? So that if we do this 2 million for 20, do we have that 18 million? If not, because we're doing the 2 million here, we've
Right.
got this is.
I understand.
So that was the
Yes,
only thing.
yes,
that we're-
I understand. So to that question, I think that's where we're kind of saying with the next year, the year after, we're solid. As we start to look further out, we either have to figure out more funding or what we're gonna do to, and we'll figure that out as we get into it, you know? It's the future's uncertain, you know? We can do as much as we can, but we
Yeah.
have to step into it, I think, with a certain degree of like, once we've accepted the necessity of a lot of this work, we just have to step into it, right? And so what that looks like a year from now, I think we're fine. Once we
Yeah.
start getting 2 years, I still think we're fine. But then we got to think about our next step, you know, and hopefully, across the course of the next year, with being much more intentional and granular with our finances, and we'll be able to figure that out in a
Good.
much more concrete way. So.
Commissioner Hammond, did you?
Yeah, I will say that your concerns, both Commissioner Molly and Commissioner Kerman, have come up in the past when we've talked about these plans. And also, I mean, we've had this discussion about trying to keep the design plans or all the ambitions within check with what the prospective budget of the future for the city is capable to do. Because I mean, we've been on these commissions for many years where plans have come forward, been approved, but then by the time the budget can come around to those plans are then outdated and the plans have to be done again. So there has been concern for for a couple commissions at least, that we try to curtail that a little bit more. And I think that's part of, you know, also the finance commission too, in kind of just reanalyzing everything holistically of how our city budget in the planning is functioning. So I'm hoping that, because this isn't the first time that concern has come up with the commissions, that is now that these plans have that process in place to make sure that we are going to fund them in time to actually construct where the plans are relevant.
No, I would just say, yeah, there's a lot of design exhaustion There are other words, but it would be great, and we can get to it. Since these take time and take lots of money, if we have in our sort of on the operating side of things, some fund into which we can tap to implement something temporary, whether it's with striping or ballers or something like that, while we're working on the grander plans. If there is, because what we hear all the time, right, it's traffic safety, neighborhood cut through, excuse me, neighborhood cut through, all those types of things. And it takes a while for us to get through the process. And if there are things we can do sort of on a, more rapid basis that are temporary, and relatively inexpensive, maybe that's a solution to this concern about delay. It's delay is not the right word, but just the time it takes. So it's just something to think about.
It's something that has been accounted for in our plan, budgeted for, is to be able to have more money spent on the operations and maintenance. That way we can get some of these quick fixes in while we're still doing our larger program. So this full scale of those quick fixes, I don't know what the maximum will be for that, if but it is something that we're currently on top, on more or less, I think, making great steps toward.
Oh, that's great to hear.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
And
Michael.
just to touch on that point on the second page here under the green table, that's kind of where we would use for some maintenance and operational purposes. There's about $795,000 that we're adopting into things like
I'm sorry, Michael, where is that?
on the second page of on the second page of this
Ah.
11 by 17.
Got it.
So you'll see 794,000. That's for sewer maintenance. This is for operations, street and sidewalks, stormwater, water contract. So street could be some striping improvements. It
Great.
could be,
Okay, thank you.
sure. This is the Indiana and Pasadena Avenue project that's in design right now. Full reconstruction, including some of the ancillary roads on that corridor. And then the orange zone. 4.2 miles of full reconstruction, water line replacement, street lights, etc. This is the Mission Street maintenance and slow streets. This is the striping and slurry and parklets and reconfiguration of the street to a 1 lane each direction. That's this project. It says not funded. However, we did allocate a certain amount of money. Don't remember off the top of my head. I think it's
125,000.
Thank you. $125,000. That's to purchase the equipment that we would need to finish what these parklets look like now, while we will come back in, I believe it's 26, 27, to get the full funding and start some of the design, get the full funding to be able to do the slow street, the lane reduction, the slurry, and the striping improvements.
Did that really say 2028, 2029? Did it
No,
really
it's
say
not
that?
28.
Yes.
Oh,
I was a bit,
It doesn't show
Sorry.
any funding in 26,
please tell me that's
27.
not accurate.
So
it's possible that we had to rebudget that, but we can look into that a little bit
I
further.
think
as
that
we
would be
refine
much
this.
appreciated by everyone.
Sure.
I mean, that's an example of a project that could be funded and delivered in a short time frame.
Right. And that's been designed twice and kicked down 3 times now. Once from,
So right now, other than buying the furniture for these parklets, there's no funding on that until 2027, 2028.
Right. So, okay, you're right. So the 2027, 2028 would be when we start doing the design, and then 28, 29. Right now, as far as what we're proposing, 28, 29 would be when we would do the striping and the signage and the slurry. Unless we reallocate, but that comes from council direction, commission direction, and then also we have our directions from city manager as well to prioritize these street improvement projects.
and do you know offhand why that was deprioritized?
This is something that our previous director and the finance commission or finance director were working on. But I can go back and talk with our finance department, try to get some of the history on why that got moved around.
If there's an opportunity to advance it, to move it.
Sure.
I think,
I don't have any of the background. You said that this would kick down 3 times. Can you,
It's been proposed in the city planning for quite some time in different iterations to reconfigure Mission, and
was it
has,
part of that downtown specific plan that got?
it's been
kind of-
part of a couple different downtown.
well, we reviewed, sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt
go ahead.
Pro at that. We reviewed the last, I don't know if the right word is design or not, a couple of months ago or last
Yeah.
month?
Last month.
Last month. God. And I think we were on board with that. And so it was supposed to move into the next phase. So I think the message we received was that it was moving forward, but not that it would take 3 years to start implementation.
Right.
And I think the cost estimate to do the whole thing, construction and slurry seal, because they wanted to redo it right, was around $1 million. But there was a portion that a few hundred thousand that could just be for design, like to just kind of keep the momentum going. It's like we
Right,
have these
and I think that's what's
conceptuals,
baked
like
into
let's just
the-
move it into the design phase instead of shelving it, things change, and then having to go back and.
And another reason why it was in the best interest to keep it prioritized is that, the city is renting those K-rails still at a very high price, right? For everything outside of what's used just for the coffee shop that has been replaced. So it's in our best interest to also do it.
So if we can't do
quicker.
the full $1 million for construction, of course, next fiscal year, we won't be ready for construction in 1 year.
No.
At least like give it some money so
Yeah, and
you can
that's,
take
and
the
that's exactly
concept
what I think the
and move it
intention is.
into design next year.
I think
you
that's
know.
what the intention is with the 125,000. Some of that is to be spent to purchase all
For the
the
equipment.
equipment that we need. And then some of it is to continue doing some of the, outreach efforts and whatnot that we need along the businesses to get their buy-in and start, keep that momentum going.
So I heard K-rail and outreach, but what about like design?
Right. That might be I mean, look, we have to go back and look
Right.
at see if we can move things around, but
Yeah.
That's a conversation we have to have with our finance
Cool.
department as well.
Yeah, at our meeting last month, it was said that there was 250,000 approximately for that design
For the
and
design.
outreach.
So
Which
likely
aligns with
between-
what shows here for 27, 28, 250,000,
Thank you.
and then 28, 29 for the construction.
So it's very likely what happened is as they were working through these numbers, looking at our 12 priority project list and saying, well, where do we need to get money from? And money moves around to fund these projects that the city has prioritized, the Indiana, the Fair Oaks ITS, the Fremont Huntington, all the staff augmentation we need, the staffing we need to implement these projects, construction management and inspection contracts, design contracts. So in that process between the meeting last time and today, it's very likely that money may have been shifted around to be able to make a budget that works and gets these larger projects moving and into construction.
I would say just to, let's maybe, if you take it as an action to maybe just, ping, Todd and, figure out if, this is online or if something's been shifted, and then you can just
Sure.
shoot an email to Commission Chair.
Sure, I can definitely look into it tomorrow, see where this is at, how this got to this point, and then email Chair Abelson. Is that acceptable?
Sorry, I was flipping
Oh,
pages.
sorry,
Could
it's
you
page 9.
would
I
you
said
repeat
I
that?
can follow up tomorrow with city manager, with our finance department, figure out how this shift came to be and follow up with you.
Okay, that would be much appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if we can accelerate, I already said it 3 times, but if there's a way to accelerate this
I
plan,
understand.
so we're not waiting 3 years to build it, that would be fantastic. But we'll talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And on that note, I think there may be a call coming in. Okay, is she still online? I don't know if you want to bring that up yet or not. There's a call, yes.
Go ahead, caller.
Do you
Someone-
see anything?
There was a hand raised, but that's public comment, I'm guessing.
And the reason I bring that up is because as part of the chamber, one of our concerns is that the outreach is not, we have not reached out to any of the merchants yet. We're talking about the slow streets, the one-way streets, bike lanes, the park, and none of the merchants are aware of it.
And that's critical.
That was one of the concerns that we have at the chamber, is that we need to at least communicate with our merchants. There was a talk I think it was last month, that there may be funds that they'd be asked to help pay for some of this too.
I know in one of, like when we did the slow streets for the parklets, there actually was reach out to the merchants in 2 phases. So might need to check back
Yeah.
with some of the staff on that, but there was a full outreach to the
Yeah, I just want
merchants.
to make sure that we've made them aware of it if there's going to be an additional
Yes.
cost to them.
Yeah, yes, but there was no additional cost at that time to the merchants.
Okay.
It was
For some
the-
reason, it was mentioned in our last meeting.
So,
No.
Michael,
Please.
we're still working through your presentation.
Yes, please.
There-
Thank you.
there is-
Sorry.
Oh, no. So, and there, well, there was public comment. It's disappeared from the screen. Is it gone for you too? Online?
We're good.
Ms. Wheeler?
Yeah.
It's gone. Okay. So finish, and
Okay.
if they come back, we'll pick them up.
Okay.
Thanks, Michael.
These are the photos that you've seen, the renderings of what those parklets can look like. Some of that 125,000 is to pay for the wood boards, the furniture inside, the pots that the plant, trees and plants are planted in to kind of finish that look. This slide is showing what the general fund expenditures will look like. So these are the 100 accounts, 101, 104, 105, 108, 116. Over the next 4 years, which is $21.4 million. That's all, that aligns with this spreadsheet that we're looking at. The remainder of that, the budget, so $185 million is coming from the various other funds that we have. These are projects that we have on our radar, but they're 2030 and beyond. All the other zones, other than the orange zone as of right now for full reconstruction, Meridian is on there. Arroyo, which is the most expensive street in our city to reconstruct because it's a full concrete street. East Monterey, that's the last part of Monterey Road that hasn't been repaved. Pasadena and Monterey maintenance, and Orange Grove. After which, there's also the whole 7-year maintenance, which is just slurry sealing, keeping our costs down, maintaining our road instead of letting it continue to degrade over time. Yes. 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 Yes.
Cruz went out last week. I know there's conversation of, oh, well, we're gonna do that when people work on maybe Is that your understanding to a sense of a timeline?
That is my understanding. Fair Oaks ITS North-South project. I believe at that time, we're going to try to do that work as well. That's part of the reason why we're bringing on staff augmentation to make sure that project continues moving forward. And part of that is also going to be to ensure that when we do the Fair Oaks project or the Fremont project in Huntington, we don't deliver a product at the end of it that seems incomplete. Yes, it's a very aggressive schedule. Yes. These are new projects that were not in the CIP in previous years. Some of them don't have any funding, but they've been identified by our, different departments as needs. Fire department expansion of their dormitories. We've heard from our police and fire about access gate on Hope, golf course equipment replacements, skate park equipment. Hanscom Drive drainage is a project up by Hanscom Drive where there's some storm drain that runs between properties and it causes drainage issues in some backyards, and we have to try to repair that. And then you see at the bottom here is the mission maintenance at slow streets, but we'll come back to you on that. And then this is a comparison between our appropriated in 2024, 2025, and our requested or our request for adopted 25, 26. So we had $17.8 million, and it shows how that's broken down between the different types of funds for 24, 25, and then also for 25, 26. So you see we're not increasing really our general fund request. But you do see an increase in specific eligibility local returns. That's like Measure M, Measure R, and purple funds, which are our enterprise funds. That's because we're getting into using our enterprise funds for water and sewer repairs.
That's a good point that he's making, is that like when we're able to do a street repair under and it's tied to a water and sewer job, we can offset some of that street cost into those other funds. So good, it's a good design strategy and good timing for how we pay for things.
Thank you. These are some of the efficiencies we've made in our Public Works CIP program recently. We've improved our bidding process. That's standardizing our boilerplates, creating different templates that we can use to quickly put a specification package together. We've added some contracted staff into our CIP division. We're looking at getting some more now that we have some other staffing vacancies to keep our projects moving forward. Procurement updates that we'll discuss in the following slide. Operational inefficiencies. Our previous presentation was regarding our tree ordinance. We're trying to streamline that to, allow staff to focus on these projects instead of being tied up with a unique tree removal permit here, unique tree removal there. That's just one option, or even permitting. So right now, all of our public works permits are received via email or via a handwritten form dropped off at the front desk in City Hall. So just implementing we use a Acela. We're working with a consultant to get all those public works permits implemented on Acela, so someone at home can log in with an account, submit their permit, gets reviewed digitally, paid online, and issued digitally. And we've created some new positions in our public works department. Program manager and CIP project manager. We're in the recruiting stage right now. So those staff will be assigned a lot of these projects, even some of the smaller ones that you see. We're bringing on augmented staff via consultants to take on some of these larger projects to make sure they keep moving along. And we have some operational improvements as well. Public works superintendent for the streets crew, and then a senior management analyst, which we brought on board, and they'll be taking on that new role on Monday. These are some procurement updates that we did. Specifically, we previously, for capital projects that are $75,000 or less, our previous policy was that if the city manager would only be able to approve projects that we are proposing to award if it's 50,000 or less. Now they can also award purchase orders in that amount. Maintenance work before was always awarded, is continued to be awarded by City Council for anything that's above 75,000, but now for maintenance work below 75,000, before staff would only be able to award up to 30,000 without going to City Council. Now we can award up to $75,000 for maintenance efforts. And emergencies, we were always required to declare an emergency by council to be able to fix issues like windstorm. We had to declare a state of emergency. We included in our procurement ordinance that the city manager can expend whatever is necessary to fix whatever needs to be during an emergency. There are storm events, natural disasters, things of that nature, or sewer issues, like an overflow. Some examples of this are for our senior center flooring project, because the lowest bid was at about $40,000. Our new procurement ordinance didn't require staff to spend time putting together a staff report, coming to City Council, and getting the award. Our city manager was allowed to award that, and that's why we were able to get that project started next week very quickly. Other examples are if we were to install a new HVAC system up to 75,000, that could be done with the city manager. Maintenance works, just sewer repair. If we had a sewer main line break and it was going to cost $60,000, we can do that with city manager's approval now. Before, it would have to be less than $30,000 to do that. And then the last one is, as we mentioned, emergency situations.
Can I ask about that? If you go back to the table, I think the professional services one seems rather low. Right, like just given the time it takes to get on a city council agenda, might be what you issue a request for a proposal, say for even an on-call consultant, that probably takes them a month to negotiate it
Yes.
and get a clean proposal, and then a few months to get on the city council agenda, right? So you're talking,
We're quicker there, but we can definitely have a conversation with city manager to see if that's something that council and city manager want to look into increasing that
I
amount.
mean, just as consultant rates have increased, 30,000 is pretty, pretty low. Usually your
Right.
invoicing task is $10,000 for the entire project, but that's my personal opinion.
The current city manager has looked at this
Mhm.
and so far hasn't raised an issue.
Okay.
In instances where we've had professional services that extended, he would usually just issue something short term to get the person going.
Okay.
And then come to council for
Great.
the full
Right.
contract.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of
yeah.
what we've done, how it's played out thus far.
Yeah, I mean, that's good to hear. I mean, obviously the priority is some of the street projects, and if a consultant's ready to go, I would hate for them to just be sitting around 4 months while we're waiting on an agenda date.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So this is just some discussions as far as concerns that we've had from council: project selection, prioritization, alignment to goals. Some other concerns we've heard is funding capability. We've heard that tonight as well. Staffing capacity, that's a concern as well, which is why we're bringing on contracted staff. Ongoing operation and maintenance cost of some of these improvements is something that's been brought up by council. And then creating a measuring system for performance and reporting quarterly, how our progress is moving along. So the next step in this process is to have any adjustments or revisions that are needed, refine our projections until the end of June of this month, so we know exactly how much our carryover is into the next fiscal year. Look into any considerations that will balance operational budgets to, if we have an opportunity to, we're not spending that much in an operations line item, we can bring that into our CIP. Or if we do see we're underfunded in an operation item that's going to affect city operations, we can add more funding to that and then adopt the fiscal year 25-26 budget.
I'm sorry, yeah, I think you may have said it before. Can you repeat which council meeting you're targeting for getting that adoption?
I think we were trying to bring it back just for CIP, potentially next week. But the full CIP with operations and all the other, departments, I think that's being targeted by August, if I'm not mistaken. Our finance department will be the one that's bringing that forward.
Yeah, all these 4 next steps here, basically, we got to consolidate those into this next week to finalize any.
For CIP.
Yeah.
If our finance department is moving this along to the June 18th council meeting for CIP, then yes, we're working with them. We worked with them today. We're going to work on them tomorrow. If they're comfortable enough to bring that to council on June 18th, then they
It's currently
can.
scheduled for the 18th.
Yes.
It's currently scheduled for the 18th.
For CIP.
Yeah, the CIP budget adoption is scheduled for the 18th.
Right.
I think we're good.
I have to talk to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what we did was looking back over some of my notes here, I think we had a special joint meeting with the Finance Commission back on 6/4. And that's where we did the review of this also. And so, yeah. We're trying to move it along, so.
So I'm maybe communicating what Commissioner Kerwin's thinking, but we certainly get notice of the various meetings, so there's no complaint about that. But boy, it would be nice if in one of those city scoops or e-neighborhood blasts or whatever, that it's not directed to you or to you, Councilmember Ferguson specifically, but if the city council is going to be talking about some big issues like this, it'd be great if that could be blasted to the community, at least those who've signed up for these things. Say, hey, so, we're going to be talking about the budget at this upcoming meeting, because otherwise I don't necessarily check every agenda for every commission meeting, or every council meeting unless I'm aware that there's something that's percolating. So just,
No, what I would tell you, Commissioner, is that, or Chair, is that, every meeting things are bubbling, you know, like it's been pretty wild. It's been a wild ride, you know, that we've, between.
You
the
signed up
things
for
that-
this.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so, I hear your point, and I'm not sure how to do it any better.
Because like for planning, and
Yeah,
right, they sent out City Scoop or whatever it was, they would send out a blast saying, hey, we're talking about the housing element, we're talking about
Mm.
density, we're talking these big, hot, issues.
yeah.
But I don't remember seeing anything like
the budget,
that for the budget, and I think
I think we did the survey. I think an email went out for a budget survey. I would
that sounds
think.
right.
Yeah, but then I don't think I'm not sure what else went out beyond
Right.
that.
So just next
yeah,
time around, it'd
yeah,
be helpful, I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
Well, I think what you're bringing up is communication,
Yes.
which is really important. We do have a South Pasadena app, which I don't think gets used as extensive as it should. Now, the app, if you go onto it, you can see a lot. But if there was more push notifications where it's coming down to, hey, upcoming budget thing of that desired. And then if we're advertising this app, because not a lot of people know about the
Yeah.
app. So just something
Yes.
getting back to the word communication, I think that would be very effective, something to be brought up. Not in your department, that would be the council people to say, hey, we got to get the message out, because I think where you're talking about, Larry, is, hey, there is a lot of information that people would like to know.
Yeah, I would say as far as the app goes, like, well, let's have a conversation around that.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things, there's a lot of background there, and the app isn't really owned like we contracted to get this app done, but a lot of the features and functionality of it aren't directly controlled by city staff. So we need to like go out to bid and whatever else. And so we're hoping to see how much of that we can pull in-house, but it's going to require some planning. And so something that we've talked about with the city manager.
Yeah.
But it's not something that we've, I don't have the concrete steps that I don't have a project plan for it yet.
Yeah.
But your point is well taken.
Yeah, and it's just an e-blast
yeah,
of some
yeah,
sort,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
fine, hey, registered, get updated information. Because that would be great. Well, hey, thank you very much for the presentation. I
Thank
think
you.
we've exhausted this.
Were you?
I know.
I know.
I have a question.
Are you done? Are you done?
I don't have any other slides. The next slide is just a logo.
Okay. It's fine, sure. Thank you. Incredible presentation,
Thank you.
chock full of information, very well organized. You're very informed, and I think we all really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dunlap.
Sure. I think I want to focus on is more specific than just general communications about what's going on in the city, but specifically with this, with the budget and some of the priorities. And you mentioned that we don't have an unlimited amount of money, and there is some sort of prioritization that happens both with council input and community input. I work for a public agency. We start our budget in September prior to the next July. So if you don't have your requests in 9 months in advance,
Right.
they're not going to get in the budget. So specific to communication, I think if we can at least have more clarity of when we can provide our input as the group that hears these complaints and has been with some of these projects like the Mission 1 Years and Year, if that's in December or that's in January or that's in September, where we can kind of agendize like what the feedback kind of where we think kind of everything lies to kind of go into kind of council's decision and their evaluation of the community input. So it's not only the survey, but it's also like, hey, we're hearing from our commissions that, this project has been stalled for a while and they really want to see it advance. So let's better define an agenda.
That would
It's
be
like
the mid-year
like-
budget.
like that window. Yeah.
Sure.
Because understanding now, it's pretty much too late to do any major overhauls. You're just moving hundreds of thousands of dollars here and
Right.
there.
I think a good opportunity that would be the mid-year budget when we start looking at that, and then that can be a great opportunity for us to agendize what that looks like and share that with the commission.
Commissioner
and get
Sharma.
their feedback.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation and answering all of our questions. I guess my question is focused on the funding piece of it. You've heard from all of us on, I think our views on some of the projects and prioritization of some of the projects, and understand, your movement on a CIP is based on the funding, right? Like how much
Right.
funding, if there is more funding, then there are more projects that you can do. And
More
so-
funding and staffing and.
Right, yeah, and so, I mean, my day job is I help run the Port of LA, and we spend, I don't know how many meetings going through our CIP and looking at our state and federal grants,
Mhm.
and looking at our grant strategy to go after state and federal grants, so we don't leave any money on the table, because if we can get the state grants, and we can get the federal grants, then we start moving down our CIP. And so it'd be good maybe for a future meeting to have a presentation on what the city's grant strategy looks like. You know, I know in Sacramento with this current fiscal budget that they're about to reach, there are some challenging aspects of the state budget. And then on the federal side, there's a dismantling that's taking place that's really impacting grants that have already been obligated. Grant programs are frozen, grant programs that may come out, and the funding for those grant programs. And so for us, that's completely changing our strategy. And so I'm really curious to see what the city's strategy is. I mean, maybe it delves into a finance question, but I think in terms of public works and infrastructure, it's tied to the funding.
Right.
So what, you know, are we making sure we're not leaving any opportunity on the table if it's there for us? So I
Got it.
think that'd be useful to inform this discussion, and I think just inform what we have to do as a committee. So just share that suggestion.
Okay, thank you. We'll follow up on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Sharma. Anybody else have any input on the CIP? All right, hearing none. Have you heard enough from us? Is there anything more you need?
I'm good.
Okay. All right,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Excellent, excellent
you.
Great
presentation.
job.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 4, approval of the minutes of the Special Public Works Infrastructure Commission meeting on May 20th, which would have been our last meeting. Did you all have a chance to at least peruse the minutes, and did you have any thoughts, comments, edits? Silence. All right, I have one. It's just the spelling of my last name at the end of it.
Oh,
Okay.
The E and the L are transposed. It's incredibly minor.
apologies.
But other than that, I thought they were great. All right, is there a motion to approve with that very slight amendment? Okay.
I'll
Is there a
second that.
motion to pass? Motion?
Commissioner Hernandez moves.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Mailing.
Okay, I'm gonna go down for a voice vote. Commissioner Hammond,
I'll abstain because I was absent for that
no
commission
problem.
meeting.
Commissioner Dunlap,
Yes.
Chair Abelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kerwin,
Yes.
Commissioner Hernandez, and Commissioner Sharma.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0-1, one abstain. Thank you.
Thank you, Rena. Next up, we have City Council Liaison Communications, Councilmember Ferguson.
Let's see. I heard some. We were talking about the trees, and I heard your point about the maybe like having the radius mapped proportional to the tree heights. And I think one of the things I took away was having like a checklist for residents. I wanted to talk just briefly that one of the big hopes was this, and you could kind of see how many of these street projects are coming in the pipeline. And so it's trying to make sure that we can work as quickly as we need to keep those things moving, as far as like not having the tree ordinance being an impediment. So it's really about optimizing resources and conserving resources to be effective in caring for what we're defining as parts of our urban canopy. My analogy is if you had a cruise ship, you wouldn't build another cruise ship to save the cruise ship. You built boats because you can't save everything. If you try to save everything, you save nothing. And so with our tree ordinance, I feel that it's a save everything approach currently. And that's become burdensome for residents and staff. And the idea is really optimize it. That way we can set out to actually set targets and be able to achieve them, So anyways, that was, I also wanted to mention that there was there was a resident that had spent, you had asked about the cost, someone asked about the cost, and I want to say, like, I was one of my early council meetings, there was a resident that spent, like, I want to say something like $4,000, I think they were in, and they were a year into trying to remove a palm tree in their front yard, and about a year. And the reality is that palm trees are not trees, right? And so what they're a monocot, you know, it's like it's more akin to a grass, right? And so if we have a tree ordinance and there's no definition for a palm tree, yet residents are incurring that much time and cost, it doesn't seem reasonable. So, anyways, the one of the last couple of things I want to talk about is it's just something to kind of think about in the back burner is at some point with our commissions, we should have a calendar for the year, kind of like what the commission kind of hopes to do and when, because we want to be able to kind of align that with the budget cycle. We want to align that with the mid-year budget. And so maybe like, I think it would be good for council, for commissions to have the time or space to talk about what they want to do while they're serving within that term. So that way people kind of work on the things that bring them to do this work, you know? And so, I just want to plant the seed in people's heads to think about that, what that would look like in an annual basis. So that way we can kind of get those the idea is to come up with like a master calendar that can be kind of work across commissions and really help kind of homogenize the way things operate. And so, so I wanted to mention that. And I took a note about the Mission Street project and keeping that prioritized. And also, I put a note about agendizing a city grant strategy. And I think something that is kind of in the works, our city managers looking towards hiring staff and kind of figuring that out. So at some point we'll have a more substantive update on that. So those are my communications and notes.
Great. Thank you very much. And to your point, we had work plan on our agenda last month, but considering the late hour, we pushed it. And then it just didn't make it on this agenda, but we're planning for the next one and I think that might be a good opportunity to address needs and wants and things like that. Thank you very much. Next up, Commissioner, excuse me, Commissioner Communications. I'll start from the right. So, Commissioner Mailing.
Yeah, so you just brought up a good point about possibly each of the commissioners, you know, our group getting together to forecast for the future. Really like that idea. I think one thing that takes some time, and I'm going to get to the word time, is it's kind of an education process here where there's certain things that we're learning. If we came together and got educated a little bit more about certain things, then we would understand better. So we're not asking some of the reoccurring questions. So I think that's really valid what you want to do and allow us, because that would be very beneficial. In getting on the word of time, this is our second commission that we're all together as a big group, and we're realizing that it's taking a lot of time to go through this. I do want to propose and throw this idea out there. I know could be a challenging, the old school concept of us meeting at 6:30 at night. And the reason why that was designed was because people do work, and it was, to do it after hours. However, I would like to see if we could consider an alternative time, an earlier time, a substantially earlier, for the benefits of two things. Number one, we will all be clear-minded. We won't be tired. Number two.
What are you suggesting?
Well, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get to you on that time. I'm going to get to you on that time. But the next topic is the reason why, and I've now been doing this for over 3 years as a city commissioner. And if there's one thing I hear from the staff, is they would love it if it was earlier. This is something that is a reoccurring thing. It does promote burnout. And that, to me, is something that we need to be very sensitive on. And getting to the time, I'd like to propose something around 3 or 3:30. So that allows the staff, the city employees, to be heading home by around 5:30 potentially. And I think that would be a solution. I get it. It's a sensitive topic, but I do think this is something that needs to be considered, not only in our commission, but other meetings as well. So that's, other than that, great meeting today. Appreciate it. And I'll send it to the next group.
Okay, I'll just say to your Commissioner Mailing, to your point, I think it's a good one. I don't know about 3, but we should definitely follow up, and I'm going to be meeting with Michael on some things, so maybe we can talk about that and see if there's something that we can come up with to bring to the group as a accommodation to that.
That would be great. That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kerwin.
I'll be brief. I'll just say thank you very much, Michael. You did great this evening, and thank you for the presentation. I'm going to reemphasize, I think, every meeting I've been at since I've been on here now, but 6 meetings or so, maybe, I don't know, 5. The priority that I hear from the community is we want to get things done quickly, and Mission Slow Streets is the highest priority of most folks that I've heard from. That or a tangent, a variation of that project. And in our last meeting, we did hear that the thought that it could be delivered in 2027 in conjunction with the other portion of Mission, or maybe even ahead of that. So the slip from last meeting to what I'm seeing this meeting to push it out to 2028, 2029 it is concerning to me. And so I do want to try to get behind this process of how we prioritize, because these are all really great projects that are proposed, but we have to prioritize what is the most impactful for the residents, for the city. And I think if we took that look, there might be some reprioritization of these funds. One other thing though is I know there's also been a lot of talk about safety around schools. It's summer now, so it's a little less urgent, although there's still summer school going on. And how that plays into these priorities and all that. 'Cause I believe there's a lot of ideas or projects out there being proposed, and I'm not sure how that fits into this CIP. So.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Dunlap.
Sure, we're borderline agendizing an item now, but I want to reemphasize what you said about the Mission Street. And I mean, I don't know if it's a stretch goal, but it's one street. Let's get it in before the Olympics. That's going to be a major transit hub, or this is going to be a transit hub for the region. It's a transit first Olympics, so you're not going to be able to park at SoFi. Probably not even within 2 miles of SoFi. You're gonna have to get on the train and ride down there. So decorate the crosswalks, like really push for that to be a world-class street when folks are coming here and getting on the train there to head to LA 28.
Thank you. Commissioner Hernandez.
I'll make it brief, Michael. I think it was 2020 that I set all the K-rails down Mission. They're absolutely terrible condition now. If we're just painting them green, I think either take them out or paint them green. We don't have to wait 4 years to do that decision. I think we've got all the planners, we've got most everything is in stock. It's just a matter of getting the approval of what we're going to do. Meanwhile, the senior here at 82, I don't mind starting at 3:30 or 3. I don't have a problem. I'm not retired, but I do think that we should really consider starting earlier. We've talked about it for years about the commitment that the staff has in staying late, and we as commissioners as well. With that, the last thing I have to say is this Saturday we have our Tournament of Roses fundraiser at the golf tournament, so that if anyone wants to play golf or just come out and join, we have that. Yeah, I've got 2 teams coming out this year, so please join us. I know there's something else on the tournament that I forgot what it was.
The new design?
We've just opened the doors to the design for next year. The theme is out, so we've got the request. Don't forget, before this next meeting, we do have our July 4th. Half the parade is going to be in the float or on the float, and the other half will be watching it. So please come out and join us this year. With that, I'll pass it over.
Right. Thank you, Commissioner Sharma.
Just a thank you to the staff for presentations today and for being here during this late hour. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hammond.
I also like to say thank you for you guys continued. I mean, you know you're going to be here in a long time when you present us these thick presentations. So you're asking for it in one way. But I really appreciate you taking the time to put such detail in the work. Just a couple little things. Councilmember Ferguson, when you're talking about the schedule, that is something that, we do get a work plan for commissions. It kind of goes through the year. One thing that would love to consider that has come up in that is that they're a little siloed per commission. And a lot of things kind of overlap. Just the case in point, kind of these Mission Street where, it was presented to us that this was going to happen in a certain time, but probably something else happened in another commission with finance or whatnot that ended up pushing it off. And so then we aren't aware of a heightened alert. Like we don't put a motion in or we don't show up to the city council to make sure that this is something that is really like carry through of the constituents' wants and desires for the city. So that would be something to consider as part of the work plan that we have asked for in the past and hopefully the city staff has a little bit more time that since we're not going to be dealing with as much tree work to kind of point out to the commissions where some of the things that are on our work plan overlap with other commissions' work too. So we can schedule it appropriately so that it falls in line with city council meetings as well with planning. I thought I had something else, but I also agree. I would love to get Mission Street in the works. The K-rails would be replaced. Like I said before, those are rented right now. So we would be purchasing new ones that are different and better.
The agreement that we had when we rented the K-rails, it was an in and out. So I don't think we have to pay to remove them. You might.
I think it was part of the agreement. Yeah, it
is.
was part of the rental agreement.
Agreement.
Yes, yeah.
We can move them any.
Trying to remember all these things. It's 5 years ago.
I'll say it real quick.
Really quick.
I've never, from New York, I've heard a lot of language. But there was one in particular that came out when we were putting and dropping the K-rails that I'll never forget on how upsetting that person was when we were dropping the K-rails. And he felt, I did say he, I didn't mean to, that he was never notified. And we put the notice out, I think, at least 4 months in advance. So getting the communication out to all of those people sometimes pays, other times they don't listen. So I'm done.
No, thank you. Anything else, Commissioner Hammond?
Yeah, I'm not sure who you were speaking of, but I actually head out some of that communication went to each business because I had a business at that time too. But it is hard, where the notices go out sometimes and maybe that person's not in. But I think the only other thing I would say is I'm able to go earlier, but I think when we're talking about earlier times, that we have to keep in mind that maybe it could be something that's a case-by-case basis per commission, that I would hate to make it that certain people wouldn't be able to volunteer to be on a commission because it interferes with their work or they don't have the ability to take a day off to participate. So
I'll follow up with Michael and then we can come back and then we can all discuss it, decide
Yeah.
what we want to do. And the other thing to think about is also the public and making sure that they have the ability.
that they
to
have the ability
participate.
to participate, yes.
So anyway, sorry.
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
else?
No, that would be it, just like making sure it's like equitable participation.
We'll talk about it. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thank you.
No unilateral decisions. echo the comments of everybody else. Thank you. Great job, Michael and team, everyone here. Thank you so much. One thing, neighborhood traffic management. So I think in the first iteration of this, well, that's not the first, but it's first year or two of MTIC, we developed with the then Public Works Director a neighborhood traffic management program, and then it was tweaked a year plus later. And it's come up every once in a while, and Ted's talked about moving it forward. And I don't think it's a capital project, but I wanted to just, if you have a sense of the timeline of, because I think it's at the point where it needs to go to council for a formal approval, but I don't even know. So I was
Right.
wondering if you just have if you could tell us tonight, if not, you can come back, but where are we and what's left to do?
I was gonna refer to the song.
Perfect.
That, but-
I'm glad you talked about this because that was actually the first thing I was assigned to me when I joined the
Oh,
city
fantastic.
6 months ago. So where we are at, I reviewed the previous neighborhood traffic management plan, and quite honestly, it's missing a lot of important information. It is not complete to the point where it can be really introduced to council or even adopted as a city procedure for future. So since I started, and again, the first couple of months, I didn't have too much things to do, so I was really working on developing a new plan. Right now, I'm still working on developing a new plan, neighborhood traffic management plan, I mean, and obviously with now being more involved in other things, it was pushed aside. However, I can have a new NTMP ready maybe perhaps in August or September. That would really, it's refined from the original one, but
Well, it's been a
What-
few years too, so I'm
I'm sorry?
It makes sense that you're revising, updating.
right,
filling it
yeah,
out.
one of the most important things that we're missing in the previous one is the procedure to follow when you are requesting a neighbor or traffic calming
Sure.
study. And even when city staff decide what mitigation measure, mainly a lot of times when you say NTMP, you talk speed humps, cushions, things like this. So what is the procedure really to follow?
Right.
Which is very important. And that was missing big time from
Okay.
the original.
Well,
plan.
thank you. I'm glad I asked, and I'm glad you had an answer.
No
And
problem.
yeah, I know that's one of the big hot topics that we always get virtually every meeting is, there's this issue and that issue in my neighborhood or around
Sure.
schools or whatever it happens to be. So it'd be great if you could do something the next few months and
Yes,
get it back to us. That would be terrific, because it'd be nice to have something in place for all of us to refer to when these issues come up.
absolutely. Yes. And
There we go. The work plan's just filling itself out. It's great. Okay, thank you.
You
for
got
comments
it.
Very much. Appreciate it. And thank you. All right, I think that's it for our comments. Staff liaison, anything left?
I just want to thank the commissioners for your patience tonight. I'm sure I don't have all the answers. I'm glad some of you do, and you have the history behind it, whether that's from MTech or the Public Works Commission. Well, you have the background, is what I mean, the history
Well
of where all these projects were, how they got to be where they are, and so that'll be a useful resource to draw from. I want to thank staff as well for being here tonight. Everybody here works very hard from very early in the morning to very late at night. So I couldn't appreciate them even, I couldn't appreciate them more if I wanted to. And thank you for your time tonight.
Great. Thank you so
Looking
much,
forward to
Michael,
working
and
together in the next
everyone.
fiscal year.
And with that, call this meeting adjourned. 9:15-ish.